Chapter 890. F***CK That's disgusting. I'll beat you to death today. The burly man quickly took off his clothes. His arms were bare as he punched and kicked Jiang Tianhao, who was sprawled on the ground. The people around them watched anxiously, and no one dared to step forward to stop them. It was only when Jiang Tianhao lay motionless on the ground that the owner of the bar was afraid that he would die. Only then did he step forward to persuade Jiang Tianhao. The brawny man spat on the ground and cursed, "What bad luck." He then swaggered away. In the bar the music was still playing. The men and women dancing on the dance floor were not disturbed by the scene at all. Yi Zisu was in Xiao Yihan's arms. Her sarcastic gaze fell on Jiang Tianhao, who was sprawled on the ground like a dead dog. Xiao Yihan bit her earlobe and chuckled softly. "Are you satisfied, my baby?" Yi Zisu turned her face to the side and kissed his lips. She whispered, "I'm very satisfied. Thank you for helping me vent my anger." The two of them kissed more and more passionately. In the end, Xiao Yihan pressed her body tightly against his chest and whispered, "Let's go back to the car?" She didn't say anything and bit his chest. He took a deep breath and said, "Little vixen, see how I'll deal with you later." She was like a seductive vixen as she lay in his arms and giggled happily. He gritted his teeth, carried her horizontally and walked out quickly. Jiang Tianhao happened to be sprawled in the middle of the road. He didn't hesitate to step over him. Yi Zisu leaned her face on Xiao Yihan's shoulder and stared at Jiang Tianhao with a half-smile. Her lips parted slightly as if she was saying something. Jiang Tianhao's entire body was in pain, and his cheeks were swollen like a pig's head. He struggled to open his eyes and in a daze, he saw Yi Zisu lying on top of a man, giving him a strange smile. Jiang Tianhao's blood rushed to his heart, and his vision turned black as he fainted. After the divorce, Jiang Tianhao was down and out, but Yi Zisu was like a fish in water. She was rejuvenated. She started a new relationship without telling her family. She had a romantic relationship with Xiao Yihan and finally crossed the last line of defense. After coming out of the bar, the two of them were entangled endlessly. From the car to Xiao Yihan's apartment, the two of them hugged and kissed passionately. The wind howled throughout the night. The next day, when Yi Zisu woke up, she heard the sound of running water coming from the bathroom. The frosted glass door projected Xiao Yihan's tall and straight figure. She couldn't help but think of the wind from last night, and her cheeks burned. She got up weakly. Her clothes were torn and she couldn't wear them anymore. She casually picked up Xiao Yihan's shirt and put it on. Beep beep. Xiao Yihan's phone suddenly rang. It was the sound of a text message. She hesitated whether she should peek, but in the end, curiosity won out. She quietly picked up the phone. The sender was Sister Chen. She knew that Xiao Yihan used to call her mother Sister Chen. Why would her mother send Yihan a text message? The more she thought about it, the more curious she became. Just as she was about to open the phone to take a look, she suddenly heard the door open. She quickly put the phone back and turned around with a smile. "Good morning." "Good morning, baby." Xiao Yihan didn't see her little action. His handsome face bloomed with a bright smile. He walked to her side and leaned over to give her a hot morning kiss. After a while, he let go of her and smiled gently. "Baby, go wash up first. I'll make breakfast for you." She blushed and nodded. After she finished washing up, Xiao Yihan was still busy in the kitchen. Even though he was wearing an apron, it didn't affect his handsomeness at all. Feeling her gaze, he turned his head and smiled gently. "Don't stand here. It's too smoky. Watch TV or play on the computer for a while. Breakfast will be ready soon." Yi Zisu's heart softened. He was the first man to cook for her. She thought that she had really fallen in love with him. The silver phone was placed on the coffee table. It was obvious that the owner had moved it. Yi Zisu picked up the phone and opened it to take a look. The text message from Sister Chen had disappeared. She flipped through her inbox. There was not a single message from Sister Chen. They were all text messages with her. She then checked the call records. There was also no message from Sister Chen. What was going on? Could it be that he and her mother were hiding something from her? Otherwise, why would he delete the text messages with her mother? Yi Zisu frowned. She began to feel suspicious. Beep beep. The phone rang again. This time Yi Zisu didn't hesitate. She immediately opened the message from Sister Chen. "I miss you. Let's meet at the usual place this afternoon." She turned pale with fright. Her fingers trembled and she almost threw the phone to the ground. She held the phone tightly with both hands and muttered to herself, No, I must have misunderstood. Mom and Yihan are good friends. That's right, that's it. Baby, what are you talking to yourself about? Xiao Han walked out of the kitchen with a plate in each hand. He had a warm smile on his handsome face. Yizisu was shocked. She gripped the phone tightly to hide her panic. She smiled stiffly and said, "No, nothing. It's done. Do you need my help?" "No, it's time to eat." "Oh, okay." Yizisu hid the phone behind her back. When she walked to the sofa, she secretly threw his phone on the sofa when he wasn't paying attention. Yizisu ate the meal blandly. On one hand, she couldn't help but wonder about the relationship between Xiao Yihan and Chen Tingfeng. On the other hand, she was worried that Xiao Yihan would find out that she had secretly read his text messages. She was really conflicted and frustrated. Xiao Yihan was oblivious to it. He treated her gently and considerately as usual. He wiped the milk from the corner of her mouth with his finger and chuckled. "Baby, you're so cute." Yizisu wanted to reply with a smile, but she couldn't. After struggling for a long time, she finally mustered up the courage to say, "Yihan, I heard your phone ring just now and then. I read your text messages. Do you blame me?" A complicated look flashed across Xiao Yihan's eyes, but he maintained his smile. "Silly, it's not a big deal. Why would I blame you?" He took a sip of milk and asked casually, "Who sent it?" Yizisu stared into his eyes without blinking and said slowly, "It's from my mom. She said she wants to meet you at the usual place." Xiao Yihan's eyes flickered, and his smile was a little unnatural. "So it's Sister Qin. Some time ago, she said she wanted to start a small business and asked me to give her some advice. She probably asked me out to talk about this." Yizisu's fingers clasped the table tightly. Her throat was dry. She was very good at reading people's expressions. She was sure that Yihan was hiding something from her. She slowly took a breath and smiled. "Since you have something to do in the afternoon, you don't have to accompany me. I'll go to the concert with my friends." Xiao Yihan held her hand and said apologetically, "I'm sorry, baby. When I'm done, I'll make it up to you." "It's okay. Business is more important." Yizisu's smile was very beautiful, but her heart was very uncomfortable. A chill actually stood her up for her mother. Between them, she couldn't think about it anymore. If she continued to think about it, she would go crazy. In the grand hotel lobby, a handsome man and a fashionably dressed woman wearing sunglasses walked side by side. When they stepped into the elevator, Yizisu immediately came out from behind a pillar in the lobby and quickly chased after them. The elevator stopped on the 12th floor. Yizisu watched as her mom, Chen Tingfeng, held Xiao Yihan's arm and walked into room 1205. Why couldn't they talk in a cafe or a restaurant? Why did they have to talk face-to-face in a hotel room? Yizisu couldn't control her imagination anymore. She gritted her teeth and went downstairs to book the room next to theirs. Like a gecko, she stuck her whole body to the wall and tried to eavesdrop on what was going on in the room next door. However, the soundproofing of the hotel room was quite good, so she couldn't hear anything. She stomped her feet in frustration and picked up her phone to call the front desk. A few minutes later, the sound of knocking echoed in the empty corridor. Then a sweet female voice said, "Hello, I'm the hotel's waitress." The waitress waited at the door for about half a minute before the person in the room opened the door. A handsome and tall figure stood in front of her. His upper body was bare and there was a towel wrapped around his waist. His firm chest muscles were well defined and there was no excess fat. His figure was simply amazing. The waitress's cheeks flushed red. She looked down in panic and said softly, "Sir, the champagne and steak you ordered are here." Xiao Yihan glanced at the food cart behind her and frowned unhappily. "I think you're mistaken. I didn't order these things." The waitress looked up in shock. "You didn't order them?" Xiao Yihan frowned even more. "Oh, I am sorry to disturb you." The waitress hurriedly bowed apologetically. When she looked up again, the man in front of her had already retreated into the room and slammed the door shut. She let out a long sigh and muttered to herself, "How could this be? It's clearly room 1205. After the waitress pushed the food cart away, Yizisu walked out from behind the huge vase. She clenched her fists and bit her lips so hard that it almost broke. She saw clearly that Xiao Yihan had come out with only a towel wrapped around him. Did he need to take a shower to talk business? There must be something going on between him and Chen Tingfeng. She slammed the door shut and roared angrily in the empty room. She punched the pillow with both fists and gritted her teeth as she roared, Why? Why are you stealing my man when you're my mother? I hate you, Chen Tingfeng, I hate you to death." Chen Tingfeng was an old woman. Xiao Yihan couldn't possibly like her. She must have seduced him and forced him. Despicable, this was too despicable. Yizisu flew into a rage. She grabbed the vase on the coffee table with both hands and slammed it against the wall. Bang. The broken pieces scattered all over the floor. She was still angry, so she picked up the ashtray and threw it against the wall as if she was hitting someone's head. Then she stared at the scratched wall and laughed hysterically. Her beautiful eyes were filled with a frightening viciousness and resentment. She whispered word by word, "Even if you're my mother, don't even think about stealing my man." Clang, a faint sound came from next door. Qin Tingfang was pressed under Xiao Yihan's body. She suddenly felt uneasy and avoided his intense kiss. She frowned and said, "Yihan, I think I heard something." Xiao Yihan bit her neck and said in a muffled voice, "Don't worry about it. Focus." Ah, mmm. As he teased her skillfully, she threw her worries to the back of her mind. She wrapped her arms tightly around his neck and pressed him closer to her. She indulged herself and sank into a sea of desire with him. The door to the next room finally opened. Seeing Qin Tingfang nestled in Xiao Yihan's arms like a little bird, Yi Zisu's hatred for Qin Tingfang deepened as she watched their backs disappear at the end of the corridor. Awesome novel Xingwu 799. Chapter 891. That night, Yi Zisu did not return home. She stayed over at Xiao Yihan's house and passionately made love to him. She had a crazy thought in her mind. She wanted to squeeze him dry so that he would never be able to fool around with Qin Tingfang again. She knew that her thoughts were childish, but there was no way she could control it. Late at night, Xiao Yihan hugged her in his arms and fell into a deep sleep. She tried to call out his name, but he did not respond. She quietly withdrew from his arms and rummaged around the room barefooted. She wanted to find evidence of Qin Tingfang and Yihan having an affair. She wanted to threaten Qin Tingfang so that she would not be allowed to interact with Yihan again. After searching for more than half an hour, she did not find anything. She did not even find a group photo. She sat in front of the desk dejectedly and messed up her hair with both hands. She was in an extremely bad mood. She inadvertently raised her head and saw the laptop on the desk. Her eyes suddenly lit up and she quickly turned it on. Password. What was the password? She bit her finger and entered Xiao Yihan's birthday. No. Then she entered Qin Tingfang's birthday. Still it was not right. The third time she hesitantly entered her own birthday. She actually succeeded. Yi Zisu felt a little better. She thought that Xiao Yihan must love her. Otherwise he would not have used her birthday as the password. There were many photos and videos stored on the laptop. Yi Zisu opened them one by one to check, but she did not find what she was looking for. Just as she was about to give up, she suddenly saw a new folder without a name. She opened it with trembling fingers. The folder was filled with erotic photos and an unsightly video. Yi Zisu felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. Her face was as white as a sheet because the male and female leads in those photos and videos were Xiao Yihan and Qin Tingfang. Those pictures were very graphic. In addition to all kinds of poses, there were also cosplay scenes. The most disgusting one was the one where Qin Tingfang wore a queen's outfit and stepped on Xiao Yihan. Yi Zisu couldn't believe what she was seeing. She couldn't wait to smash the computer and destroy the evidence. She wrapped her arms around her shoulders and felt extremely cold. The mother and daughter actually fell in love with the same man and even had sex with the same man. Hee, how ironic. You saw everything. A low and hoarse voice came from behind. Yi Zisu turned around stiffly. Xiao Yihan was standing in front of her with his upper body bare. His dark eyes were as deep as the sea, and his handsome face was expressionless. He was like a stone statue, lifeless. His tone was stiff and mechanical. Very good, you finally realized. You definitely can't accept it. Let's break up. Why? Yi Zisu was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. She suddenly jumped up from the chair and shouted in a sharp voice, "Why are you with her? You know very well that she's my mother." "I'm sorry." He looked down and stared at his feet coldly as if none of this had anything to do with him. "I don't need you to be sorry. I need an explanation." Yi Zisu threw herself into his arms and grabbed his arm emotionally. She screamed hysterically, "Explain. Hurry up and explain to me." Xiao Yihan still looked down and clenched her fists. Her lips curled into a bitter smile as she said, "There's nothing to explain. I'm dirty. I'm not good enough for you. Let's break up." Slap. The crisp sound shocked the two of them. Yi Zisu's right hand was frozen in midair. She stared blankly at the palm print on his face. Tears rolled down her cheeks and she suddenly covered her face. She cried heartbreakingly, "How could you do this to me? I love you so much. Why did you lie to me? Have you never loved me? You're a liar, a liar." Xiao Yihan's body trembled. He finally looked up slowly and stared at Yi Zisu. At that moment Yi Zisu finally saw his eyes clearly. His dark eyes were filled with pain. He didn't say a word and just looked at her sadly. It made her heart ache. In the silent night, only her sorrowful cries could be heard. After some time he spoke again. His voice was hoarse like sandpaper. It's not what? She stared at him with tears in her eyes. Her heart was filled with anticipation. He took a few steps forward with difficulty and hugged her tightly. He said painfully, "It's not that I've never loved you. I like you. I like you a lot." He said the last few words very softly, but Yizisu heard them clearly. She couldn't help but bawl and hit his chest. "Liar, liar. Since you like me, why did you sleep with her?" "I'm sorry." Her head was pressed against his chest. She couldn't see his expression, but from his deep voice she could hear his sadness. Since he was sad, why did he do such a thing? Her tears fell like rain. "What? Tell me why. Why did you save me from the darkness and then push me into the abyss with your own hands?" "No, I can't say." Xiaoyihan cupped her face and kissed her gently. His dark eyes were filled with love and pain. "Just pretend that nothing happened between us. Forget about me." After saying that, he let go of her resolutely and turned around. He didn't look at her again. His voice was cold and indifferent. "I'm going to sleep in the guest room. You can leave early tomorrow morning. Don't come looking for me again." "Xiaoyihan, I won't allow you to leave. If you don't make things clear today, I'll—" Yizisu shouted anxiously at his back. Suddenly she saw a small craft knife in the pen holder on the desk. She quickly took it out and pressed it against her chest. She said anxiously, "If you don't make things clear, I'll die in front of you." Xiaoyihan turned around abruptly and saw that she was holding a small knife in her hand. His expression changed drastically and his eyes flashed with panic. He quickly reached out to stop her. "Zisu, put the knife down. Don't do anything stupid." "No, I won't put it down. If you don't make things clear, I'll die in front of you. Anyway, you don't want me anymore. What's the point of me living?" Her eyes were hazy with tears. His face was pale and he shook his head sadly. "Why do you have to force me?" "Because I love you." Yizisu tightened her grip on the knife. The tip of the knife pierced her skin and dark red beads of blood flowed out. It was especially glaring on her snow-white skin. She endured the pain and said, "If you don't tell me, I'll really stab myself in the heart." "Stop. Don't continue." Xiaoyihan suddenly roared. His eyes were about to split open and his handsome face was contorted in pain. "I'm not worth it for you to do that." "You're right. I'm a liar. The reason why I got close to you and Sister Chen was to seduce you and cheat you of your feelings." Although his words were heartless, there was sadness hidden in his eyes. Yizisu shook her head, refusing to believe his words. "What you want to know I've already told you. If you insist on seeking death, I won't stop you. But, for a dirty man like me, is it worth it?" He looked at her deeply, suddenly turned around and walked away in large strides, ignoring her. Yizisu's tense body suddenly relaxed. She slumped onto the chair and the knife in her hand fell to the ground. She hugged her knees with both hands and curled up under the blanket. She cried silently. Even when she divorced Jiang Tianhao, she didn't feel so bad. After crying silently for a long time, she raised her head and wiped her tears. Her expression was firm. She didn't believe Xiaoyihan's words. He must have his reasons. She must find out the truth. When she woke up the next day, Xiaoyihan was no longer in the room. He left a post-it note on the table and wrote, "There's breakfast in the kitchen. Don't go hungry." He left the key on the coffee table when he left. That key was personally handed to her by Xiaoyihan when they were dating. Now that he wanted to go back, he really wanted to cut all ties with her. Yizisu crumpled the note into a ball. Her expression was frighteningly cold. Since they had started a relationship, it wasn't up to him to end it. She wouldn't give up. After breakfast, she did not give up and continued to search his room. She believed that no matter what difficulties he had, he would definitely have left behind some clues. In the end, she found a black notebook in the drawer of the desk. The first half of the notebook was filled with his schedule. There was nothing special about it. When she patiently flipped to the back, she saw more than 10 diary entries. "Today, Sister Chin said that she wanted to introduce her daughter to me. I met her as Zisu. She's as beautiful as an angel who barged into my life. I fell in love with her at first sight. I'm in a bad mood today because I heard that Zisu has a boyfriend and she loves him very much. Why did God let me meet the girl of my life, but let her fall in love with another man?" I asked Sister Chin to go hiking. As expected, Sister Chin brought Zisu along. I was very happy, but I didn't dare to show it. I could only silently watch her from behind. Since she only treats me as an older brother, then I'll be her older brother. But why does my heart feel so bad? Yi Zissou flipped through several diary entries. They were all related to her. Only then did she realize that Xiao Yihan had fallen in love with her a long time ago. He had always been silently watching her from behind. Even that time when she met him in the underground parking lot of Jiang Tianhao's company, he had done it on purpose. He comforted her when she was sad. He wiped away her tears when she cried. When she took revenge on Jiang Tianhao, he reached out to help her. When everyone scolded her for being shameless, he stood bravely by her side. He had done so much for her, but he had always kept it from her. She sniffled and her tears fell uncontrollably. Her tears turned the ink black. She quickly wiped the tears on the paper and continued reading. Couldn't fall asleep. My mind was filled with her. I wondered what she was doing now. I didn't dare to call her because she was already married to another man. Felt terrible and drank 2 glasses of wine. Sister Chin suddenly called. She said that she was drunk and was at a bar. She asked me to pick her up. When I arrived, Sister Chin was surrounded by a few men. I helped her out and wanted to send her home. She didn't want to go back. She said that she didn't want others to see her. I took her to my apartment. She was drunk and wanted to drink with me. I was also very bored, so I drank a few glasses with her. I didn't expect that after I got drunk, I would mistake her for Zissou. After I sobered up, I saw Sister Chin lying in my arms. I almost broke down. I didn't know what to do. Sister Chin said that we should treat it as if nothing had happened. Everything would go back to how it was before. I agreed, but I knew that we could never go back to how it was before. I was dirty. I didn't deserve the pure Zissou. Attention Hongcha 866. Chapter 892. I thought that night was just a nightmare, but I didn't expect Sister Chen to come looking for me again. She said she was very lonely and wanted someone to keep her company. She said she liked the young and energetic me. I wanted to reject her, but she threatened me and said she would tell Zissou about what happened that night. In the end, I compromised. I didn't want Zissou to know about my unbearable side, even though she didn't care about me at all. Yi Zissou gritted her teeth so hard that they almost shattered. She had never hated Qin Tingfang so much. How could her biological mother do such a despicable thing? I was forced again. I hated myself so much that I wanted to numb myself with alcohol. I didn't expect to meet Tang Feng and Zissou. Zissou was drunk and was held in Tang Feng's arms. I was jealous and snatched her away from him. She lay in my arms and cried. She cried that Jiang Tianhao cheated on her and betrayed her. She was the treasure in my heart, but she was ruined by another man. My heart was about to break. I was very conflicted. On one hand, I wanted to protect her and give her happiness. On the other hand, I felt that I was dirty and unworthy of her. I was conflicted and in pain. Until one day I found out that Jiang Tianhao was using domestic violence against her. That was when I made up my mind to snatch her away. Since other men couldn't give her happiness, then I would give her happiness myself. I asked her to go to a concert. I was already prepared to propose to her, but Sister Chen contacted me again. I was afraid that she would tell Zissou about us, so I had no choice but to go. I had no choice but to lie to Zissou. When I saw her disappointed expression, I hated myself for being so powerless. This was the last entry in the diary. Yi Zissou had already burst into tears when she read this. She clutched the notebook tightly in one hand and slammed her fist on the desk with the other. Each hit was heavier than the last. She didn't stop until the back of her hand was red and swollen. She tried to vent her emotions in this way, but it was useless. She was so miserable that she felt like dying. She no longer wanted to call that woman mother. What kind of mother was she to a lover who forced her daughter to marry? Yi Zissou waved her arms and pushed everything around her to the floor. Then she only took a key and ran out of the room agitatedly. She wanted to go home immediately and confront Qin Tingfang face to face. Running to the underground parking lot, Yi Zissou's head, which had been clouded by anger, slowly cleared up. She remembered that she should have brought the notebook with her. Otherwise Qin Tingfang would definitely deny it. She turned around and went upstairs. When she returned to Xiao Yihan's apartment, the study room was in a mess. The notebook that she had thrown away earlier was nowhere to be found. Yi Zissou couldn't find the notebook, so she copied the photos of the boat from Xiao Yihan's computer. At the Ji residence, Qin Tingfang was wearing sunglasses and lying on a hanging bed in the garden, comfortably sunbathing. When she heard footsteps, she opened her eyes and saw Yi Zissou standing beside her. She said unhappily, "Mom, I have something to tell you." Qin Tingfang took off her sunglasses and looked at her curiously. What's wrong? Who provoked you? Yi Zissou gritted her teeth and tried hard to control her emotions. She forced a smile. Let's go back to the room and talk. The room was very quiet. The mother and daughter sat facing each other and neither of them spoke first. After a while, Qin Tingfang's patience ran out. She frowned and said, Zissou, what's wrong with you today? If you have something to say it quickly. Yi Zissou lowered her eyes and stared at the teacup in her hand to hide the deep anger in her eyes. She said softly, Mom, I want to be with Xiao Yihan. What do you think? Xiao Yihan? Qin Tingfang's voice suddenly rose and she almost jumped up from the sofa. She immediately realized that she had overreacted, so she lowered her voice and said gently, Zissou, I thought you didn't like Xiao Yihan. Why did you suddenly mention him? Yi Zissou pursed her lips. I think he's quite good. He's handsome, capable, and has a good personality. He doesn't mind that I was divorced before and… She paused and suddenly looked up. Her dark eyes stared straight at Qin Tingfang and she smiled. And I like him. Qin Tingfang was shocked. The mother and daughter actually fell in love with the same man. Oh my God, just thinking about it made her feel ridiculous. Her nails dug deep into her palms. She forced herself to calm down and said slowly, Zissou, are you serious? You've fallen in love with Xiao Yihan? Yi Zissou's smile became brighter. She nodded and said sweetly, Yes, Mom. Yihan likes me too. We're even planning to get married. No, that's impossible. I mean, even if you two like each other, you should ask for the opinion of your family. Qin Tingfang's expression was extremely ugly. Her heart was in a mess. How could this be? Could it be that Yihan really fell in love with Zissou? This thought was about to drive her crazy. She stood up and held her forehead with one hand. She said frantically, I'm not feeling well. I'll go back to my room first. Let's talk about you and Xiao Yihan in 2 days. She walked to the door in a flustered and helpless manner. Yi Zissou looked at her back and sneered. She said softly, Mom, Yihan and I are truly in love. You'll definitely give us your blessings, right? Qin Tingfang's body stiffened and she stopped in her tracks. Her throat was dry and uncomfortable. She wanted to say yes, but her heart felt like it was being cut into pieces. She couldn't say it, so she ran out of the door in a flustered manner. You're trying to steal your own daughter's man. You're really shameless. Yi Zissou clenched her fist and held a USB drive in her palm. If Qin Tingfang wanted to fight to the end, she would no longer care about their mother-daughter relationship and fight to the death. In short, Xiao Yihan was hers. He was definitely hers. Qin Tingfang called Xiao Yihan's phone again and again, but all she got was, the number you have dialed is switched off. She anxiously and angrily threw her phone on the floor. She paced around the room in frustration. What should she do? If Zissou and Yihan were truly in love, should she give them her blessings? However, when she thought about how she could no longer have anything to do with Yihan, she felt so miserable that she wanted to cry. Yihan, where are you? Why aren't you picking up the phone? Qin Tingfang had completely lost the rationality that a woman her age should have. She held a lady's cigarette between her fingers. As she smoked, she grabbed her hair in frustration. She looked like she had aged a few years in an instant. Before she knew it, the sky had turned dark. It was not until the servant knocked on the door and invited her downstairs for dinner that she snapped out of her daze. She said tiredly, I'm not feeling well. I won't be going downstairs. She sighed deeply and opened the window to ventilate the room. She wanted to get rid of the smell of smoke as soon as possible. She said that she was not feeling well and that Ji Bowen would definitely come upstairs to see her later. Sure enough, as soon as she laid down in bed, Ji Bowen opened the door and came in. I heard that you're not feeling well. Do you want me to call the doctor? She coughed weakly. It's okay. I just have a slight cold. I'll be fine after a nap. Bowen, you can sleep in the guest room tonight. I'm worried that you'll be infected. Ji Bowen said, Okay. I'll get the servants to make you a bowl of porridge. Okay, sorry to trouble you. Hurry down and eat. Don't let the children wait too long. Okay. Rest well. After the soft sound of the door closing, the room returned to a dead silence. Qin Tingfang's eyes welled up and tears rolled down her cheeks. Ever since she got together with Yihan, her relationship with Ji Bowen had become even colder. Even if the two of them were lying on the same bed, they had never done anything like husband and wife. The phrase bedfellows was used to describe the two of them. She quickly wiped away her tears and picked up her phone. Unwilling to give up, she dialed Xiao Yihan's number again. She did not expect that the call would go through this time. The moment she heard Xiao Yihan's voice, her tears almost fell again. Her voice was thick and nasal as she asked anxiously, Ihan, where are you? I want to see you. Ting Fong, I told my parents about us. I thought that they would support us, but I didn't expect them to send bodyguards to tie me up. His magnetic voice was filled with loneliness as he said, Ting Fong, I told my parents about us. I thought that they would support us, but I didn't expect them to send bodyguards to tie me up. Chin Ting Fong was so anxious that she stomped her feet. What? Why are you so silly? Your parents definitely won't agree to our relationship. How are you now? Are you okay? Are you hurt? I'm fine. The bodyguard stole my phone. I stole it while they were asleep. Ting Fong, they're going to bring me back to America tomorrow. However, I won't let them succeed. I'll definitely escape. Wait for my news. Ihan, you must be careful. Between you and Zissou. Beep beep. The call was suddenly cut off. Chin Ting Fong called again, but the phone was turned off. She was in a terrible mood. The bodyguards must have woken up and realized that Xiao Ihan was on the phone, so they took his phone away again. She was so annoyed that she stomped her feet. She was so anxious, but there was nothing she could do to help Xiao Ihan. Chin Ting Fong suffered for the whole night, waiting for Xiao Ihan's news. However, after that phone call, the two of them did not contact each other again. The next morning, she went downstairs for breakfast with 2 dark circles under her eyes. Ji Yuqi and Ji Yunhan had already finished eating and went to school. Ji Bowen had also gone to the office. Only Yi Zissou was left at the dining table. Yi Zissou looked up at her. Good morning, Mom. Good morning. Chin Ting Fong felt guilty and did not dare to look into her eyes. She pulled out a chair and sat down. Yi Zissou took a sip of milk and laughed softly. Mom, did you not rest well last night? Is there something on your mind? No, I'm just a little uncomfortable. Is that so? I thought you were still thinking about me and brother Ihan. Yi Zissou spread jam on the bread as she said, Oh, by the way, I mentioned Ihan and I to Uncle Ji last night. Uncle Ji said that as long as Ihan's character is good and trustworthy, he won't interfere with us. I just realized that Uncle Ji is actually a very good person. With that, she nodded affirmatively and asked with a smile, Mom, what do you think? Chin Ting Fong smiled stiffly. Yes, you're right. Yi Zissou's smile faded and she said calmly, Mom, I hope you won't interfere with us. If you insist on interfering, I might do something bad. Chin Ting Fong's expression changed and she stared at her in disbelief. What do you mean by that? Attention Hongcha 866. Chapter 893. Yi Zissou said calmly, Nothing much. I just want to protect my happiness. Mom, I call you Mom and I hope you're worthy of this title. Isn't it your responsibility as a mother to make your daughter happy? Chin Ting Fong's heart thumped wildly. She seemed to understand something from her daughter's indifferent expression. Her throat tightened and her voice was dry. Zissou, are you misunderstanding something? Yi Zissou looked at her coldly. You know very well whether it's a misunderstanding or not. You really disgust me. She deliberately emphasized the word, disgust, like she was grinding it between her teeth. Chin Ting Fong felt a chill all over her body. Yi Zissou used her fork to stab the strawberry jam spread on the bread. The red strawberry jam looked like fresh blood gushing out of her body. She glanced at Chin Ting Fong provocatively from the corner of her eyes and threw the fork on the plate with a clang. She stood up arrogantly. I'm full. Enjoy your meal. What kind of attitude is that? Chin Ting Fong pressed a hand to her chest. She was so angry that her liver hurt. Yi Zissou glanced at her disdainfully and sneered. She didn't want to argue with her anymore. On the way to school, Yi Zissou called Xiao Ihan. The phone rang for a long time but no one picked up. She didn't give up and called again and again. Finally, Xiao Ihan's deep and hoarse voice came from the other end of the line. We're done. Yi Zissou gripped the steering wheel tightly and gritted her teeth. The things you said are nothing to me. Xiao Ihan, I don't mind. I just want to be with you. Before I say so, who allowed you to say so? The person on the other end of the line was silent for a long time. Finally, he sighed and said in an extremely bleak voice, I'm sorry. I can't accompany you anymore. I'm about to board the plane and fly to America. I'll never come back. Take care. As soon as he finished speaking, he hung up without waiting for her reply. Yi Zissou stared blankly at the road ahead. She couldn't believe what she had just heard. He was going back to America? Never to return? What about her? She slammed on the brakes and stopped the car by the side of the road. She frantically dialed his number. The cold female voice on the other end of the phone reminded her that the other party had turned off the phone. Yi Zissou angrily punched the steering wheel and kicked the car. He clearly loved her. Why did he have to leave? What? She suddenly thought of someone. Qin Tingfang. It was her. She must be the one who threatened Ihan. In a fit of rage, she threw all thoughts of school and classes to the back of her mind. She turned the car around and slammed on the accelerator, heading back to the Ji residence. Qin Tingfang finished her breakfast and faced the empty room unhappily. She couldn't wait for Xiao Yihan's news and was very anxious. She didn't know if he had successfully escaped. The door was suddenly slammed open. Qin Tingfang was shocked. She quickly looked up and saw Yi Zhisu standing at the door with a livid face. Her eyes, which were similar to hers, were filled with resentment. Qin Tingfang felt Yihan's heart when she saw her venomous glare. She immediately stood up and asked with concern, "Zhisu, why are you back?" Yi Zhisu clenched her teeth and stared at the woman who gave birth to her. She walked towards her step by step and finally stopped 3 steps away. She squeezed a few words out of her teeth. "Yihan is going back to America. Did you force him?" Qin Tingfang's eyes widened. She quickly reacted and forced a smile. "His parents are in America. It's only right for him to go back. What does it have to do with me? Don't pretend anymore." Yi Zhisu broke down emotionally and shouted hysterically, I know everything. It's about you and him. You must have forced him to leave. We were so in love. Why did you have to interfere? Tell me." Qin Tingfang's face was pale. Her fingers trembled slightly. She turned her face slightly and pursed her lips. She didn't know what to say. Yi Zhisu threw herself at her. She grabbed her arm and shook it vigorously. She cried and screamed, "Give him back to me. Hurry up and give him back to me." "Zhisu, calm down. I really didn't force him to leave." When Qin Tingfang saw her daughter's grief-stricken appearance, she didn't feel good either. She tried to persuade her, but her daughter didn't appreciate it. She raised her tear-stained face and questioned sternly, "If you didn't force him, why did he leave? He said that he loved me and wanted to marry me. If you didn't interfere, we would have been married." Qin Tingfang's head was spinning from Yi Zhisu's shaking, and her ears were suffering from the noise. In a moment of frustration, she wanted to push Yi Zhisu away, but Yi Zhisu held on tightly. She didn't know why, but she raised her hand and slapped Yi Zhisu. Following that, she shouted angrily, "Enough, stop making noise." Qin Tingfang suddenly flipped out. Yi Zhisu was shocked and let go of her shoulder. She sighed and said earnestly, "Zhisu, do you really think that everything is Mom's fault? If it's not your fault, then is it my fault? He's about to propose to me. I really love him." Yi Zhisu's tears flowed down again as she thought of the sad part. "Mom, if you still treat me as your daughter, then call him back. I can't leave him." Qin Tingfang had a headache and her eyes flickered. "How many times do I have to say it before you understand? I really didn't ask him to leave." She found it hard to explain the real reason Xiao Yihan left. Yi Zhisu didn't let it go. Then why did he leave? Qin Tingfang flew into a rage out of humiliation and said angrily, "That's enough. I said I don't know, so I don't know. Even if you ask me 100 times or 1,000 times, I still don't know." Yi Zhisu stared at her as if she was looking at a stranger for a long time. Suddenly she laughed out loud. Her laughter was strange and eerie, and her eyes flashed with a wild light. Her lips parted slightly like a venomous snake and she said eerily, "Qin Tingfang, from today onwards we're no longer mother and daughter. In the future, I don't have a shameless mother like you anymore." Every word that came out of her mouth was like a sharp arrow that fiercely pierced Qin Tingfang's chest. She clenched her fists tightly and her voice was sharp because of urgency and anger. "You're crazy. I'll give you one more chance. Take back what you just said." Yi Zhisu sneered. "Words that have been spoken are like spilled water. They can't be taken back. I don't want to be your daughter anymore." Qin Tingfang's face was as pale as a sheet. Her voice trembled as she said, "Are you really going to abandon our mother-daughter relationship for a man?" "That's right." Yi Zhisu was 2 centimeters taller than Qin Tingfang. She lifted her chin slightly and stared disdainfully at Qin Tingfang. She said coldly, "You're even stealing your daughter's man. What kind of mother are you?" After saying those words, she didn't bother to look at Qin Tingfang anymore. She turned around arrogantly and left, leaving Qin Tingfang standing there like a soulless puppet. The man she loved the most had left her hometown and would never come back because of her mother. That kind of heart-wrenching pain made Yi Zhisu feel almost hopeless. She had been sitting in front of the bay window for the whole morning. She called Xiao Yihan's phone countless times, but it was always turned off. In the end, she stiffly sent a text message. "Yihan, I really love you. Just take it as me begging you. Come back, okay? If you don't want to come back, tell me your address. I'll go find you. I miss you so much. I really miss you." After waiting for the whole afternoon and then the whole night, she finally received a call from an unknown number in the wee hours of the morning. It was Xiao Yihan's voice. Zissou, I've arrived in America. Yi Zissou excitedly got up and said anxiously, Yihan, did you see my text message? If you don't want to come back, I'll go to America to find you. Can you tell me your address? The sound of heavy traffic could be heard on the other end of the phone. She could tell that he was driving. Have you really thought it through? Give up everything in China and come to America? I've thought it through. As long as I can be with you, I don't mind anywhere. Yihan, I miss you so much. I miss you too, baby. His voice was much gentler. It's early in the morning in China. Did I disturb your rest? No. Actually, I've been waiting for your news. Yi Zissou's heart was filled with sweetness as if she had eaten honey. After acting coquettishly for a while, she said, Yihan, quickly tell me your address. I'll get a visa as soon as possible and come find you. His voice was unbelievably gentle. Okay, my address is... A loud bang interrupted his voice. Yi Zissou heard the loud bang from the phone and her heart almost stopped. Her voice trembled as she called out, Yihan, what's wrong? Yihan. There was no response. Yihan. Yi Zissou screamed at the top of her lungs. Each scream was more mournful than the last. She realized that something bad had happened and a huge panic engulfed her. Her whole body trembled uncontrollably. Yihan, hurry up and answer me. Nothing can happen to you. Nothing can happen to you. After a long time, almost as long as a century, Yi Zissou finally heard Xiao Yihan's weak voice intermittently. Cough. Zissou. I'm sorry. I love you. The deathly silence returned to her ears. Yi Zissou felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. She was so cold that her body kept trembling. She kept muttering, Nothing will happen to you, Yihan. Nothing will happen to you. Wait for me to go to America to find you. I'll go to America to find you immediately. The sound of police cars and ambulances could be heard from the phone. A man said in fluent English, Hello, this gentleman has been in a car accident. We're trying to resuscitate him. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. This gentleman's heart has stopped because of excessive blood loss. The phone landed heavily on the floor. Yi Zissou did not hear what the man said at all. There were only a few words lingering in her mind. His heart has stopped. She hugged her head and cried in the wind. No, her miserable cries were particularly clear in the silent night. Even though the villa's soundproofing was good, her sorrowful cries could still be heard in other rooms. Jiuqi was in a deep sleep. When she heard the cries in a daze, she turned over and continued to sleep soundly. Ji Yunhan was woken up. He scratched his hair in frustration and covered his head with the quilt. Qin Tingfang hesitated for a while. She put on a jacket and walked to Yi Zissou's room. She gently knocked on the door. Zissou, are you okay? Welfare Songshu 566. Chapter 894. There was no other response in the room except for waves of miserable cries. Perhaps she still couldn't accept the fact that Xiao Yihan had left. Qin Tingfang sighed sadly and silently turned to leave. At a time like this, Zissou definitely didn't want to see her. Yi Zissou locked herself in her room for an entire day. She didn't eat or drink, and no matter who came to persuade her, she wouldn't open the door. When she came out of her room the next day, everyone including Jiuqi was shocked. She was thinner than before. She was wearing a long white dress, her face was pale, and her long hair hung down to her shoulders. She had a dark and gloomy aura around her as she floated down from upstairs like a female ghost. Everyone who was eating stared at her in a daze. Ji Yunhan almost choked on his milk and mumbled, Second sister, what's wrong with you? Ji Bowen coughed and said, Zissou, you must be hungry. Come and have breakfast. As the head of the family, he was also very curious as to why Zissou had become like this. However, it was obvious that she had suffered a huge blow, so it was better not to remind her of her sad past. Yi Zissou's indifferent gaze swept across everyone and finally landed on Qin Tingfang. A hint of hatred flashed in her eyes as she said indifferently, No need. You guys eat. I want to go out for a walk. Her thin figure disappeared from everyone's sight, and the atmosphere froze for a moment. Qin Tingfang forced a smile and said to Ji Bowen, It's okay. She's just in a bad mood. Let her go out for a walk. Jiuqi lowered her eyes and quietly cut the fried sausages. The sharp blade of the knife cut the sausages again and again, and the corners of her lips curved into a faint smile. Yi Zissou drove to the apartment where Xiao Yihan used to live. She opened the door with the key she left behind. The room still had its original decorations. They used to spend many happy times here. In the empty room, she could still hear his laughter and smell the faint fragrance of grass and wood on his body. Her tears fell once again. She covered her mouth and cried silently. "Yan, why are you so cruel? After I fell in love with you, you left me alone." She didn't know how long she had been crying. Her eyes were red and swollen and she almost couldn't open them. She hadn't eaten for a long time, which caused her blood sugar to be low. Her vision turned black. She leaned against the wall and closed her eyes to rest for a while before she felt slightly better. The study was still as messy as it had been the other day. She squatted on the floor and searched everywhere, trying to find the notebook that Xiao Yihan had left behind. However, after searching the entire study, she could not find it. She did not know where it had gone. She wanted to keep his personal belongings as a memento, but he didn't like to take photos. There was not a single photo in the room. He had taken all the clothes in the wardrobe with him. Other than the furniture, there was only a computer left. She turned on the computer with a pained and desperate heart. She flipped through the photos of him and Qin Tingfang. Her heart was filled with hatred. If it wasn't for Qin Tingfang forcing him, he wouldn't have left China and wouldn't have gotten into a car accident in America. It was all Qin Tingfang's fault. She stared at Qin Tingfang's familiar face in the photos and wanted to bite her to death. At Yingqing International Airport, a tall and handsome man with a pair of sunglasses rested on the bridge of his nose. His right hand was pulling a suitcase and his left hand was in his trouser pocket. He was leisurely waiting to board the plane. With such a handsome face, he attracted a lot of attention. Even the stewardess took a few more glances at him. If Zisu saw him, she would definitely faint from shock. This was because he was Xiao Yihan, who had died in the car accident. Before boarding the plane to New York, Xiao Yihan took off his sunglasses and took one last look at the city. There was a hint of nostalgia in his dark eyes and his sexy thin lips were slightly curved. It was obvious that he was in a good mood. The plane had not taken off yet. He sat by the window and looked at the city that he had lived in for many years. There was a hint of disappointment in his heart, but more than that, he was looking forward to a new life. His slender fingers swiped on his phone and answered the call. His lips curled into a faint smile. "Miss, the mission is complete. You just have to wait for the results." Jiuqi was driving and had a Bluetooth earpiece in his ear. He smiled when he heard what Xiao Yihan said. "Sure, I've never doubted your ability. Xiaoyang, the doctor said that An's eyes are recovering well. If you hurry over, you can accompany her to remove the gauze." Xiao Yihan, whose real name was Xiaoyang, smiled wider and said in a warm voice, "I want to be the first person An sees after she recovers her sight." After saying that, he paused and said slowly, "Yuchi, thank you. Thank you for everything you've done for us." Jiuqi laughed softly. "Don't be too touched. I'm just doing what I should according to our deal." Xiaoyang's eyes sparkled. He knew that she did not need his gratitude, but he would never forget her kindness. When Xiaoyang was in junior high school, Father Xiao drove a car borrowed from a friend and took the whole family out to play. Unexpectedly, he was so tired that he drove and got into a car accident. Father Xiao and Mother Xiao were seriously injured and died. His sister, Xiaonan, was only 8 years old when she lost her eyes and could no longer see this colorful world. Since then, Xiaoyang and his sister relied on each other. Their relatives helped them, but as they grew older and their expenses increased, their relatives gradually stopped visiting. Xiaoyang chose to drop out of high school and worked 2 jobs every day to support himself and his sister. He was good-looking, so many people harassed him when he was working. Finally, one day he walked into a nightclub with the idea of saving money for his sister's surgery. He was good-looking, young, and innocent, and quickly won the favor of the female customers. The store also spent a lot of effort to cultivate him into a graceful, elegant, and well-spoken young master, causing the customers to flock to him like a flock of ducks. He was the number one in the store and could even choose his own female customers. He saved a lot of money, but he still couldn't do the surgery for his sister because the success rate of the same surgery in the country was too low, and he couldn't wait for a suitable cornea. Xiaoyang would always remember the day Jiuqi came to him. He thought that she was no different from those rich girls who went to nightclubs to indulge themselves and look for excitement, but she didn't. She took off her sunglasses, revealing a pair of intelligent and charming eyes. She smiled and said, "Xiaoyang, do you want your sister to regain her sight?" He couldn't refuse her help. He signed an agreement with her. She would find the best hospital and the best doctor for An, help her regain her sight, and pay all the expenses during this period. Not only did she do it, but she also bought an extra apartment for the siblings to live in. She even helped them get a green card so that they could stay in the United States and start a new life. Xiaoyang remembered everything Jiuqi did for him. He swore that if he had the chance he would repay her. According to the agreement, Xiaoyang deliberately got close to Qin Tingfang, seduced her, and got evidence of her infidelity. He also instigated the relationship between Qin Tingfang and Yi Zhisu, causing them to turn against each other. Thinking of this, he took out a black notebook from his bag. It was the notebook that Yi Zhisu couldn't find for a long time. It recorded his love for Yi Zhisu and his slander of Qin Tingfang. Of course, he wouldn't let Yi Zhisu keep such written evidence. When he got off the plane, he would destroy it with his own hands. From then on, Xiao Yihan would completely disappear from the world. The one who would get a new life would be him, Xiaoyang. After ending the call, Jiuqi narrowed her eyes slightly and the corners of her lips curled up. Yi Zhisu, don't let me down. Please work hard to fight with your mother. Yi Zhisu didn't let her down. In a state of sadness and anger, she sorted out the photos of Qin Tingfang and Xiao Yihan and sent them to Ji Bowen's office anonymously. Of course, Yi Zhisu didn't lose her mind. She wouldn't publicize it and let everyone know. That would also affect her own reputation. Ji Bowen opened the package and saw the photos inside. He was so angry that his blood pressure rose and he almost fainted. His fingers trembled as he flipped through the photos. Because of the angle of the photos, Qin Tingfang's face was exposed in each photo, so no one would mistake her for someone else. As for the wild man's face, he didn't know if the photographer did it on purpose, but he didn't expose his face at all, so no one could recognize who he was. It was only a dozen or so photos, but it took him a full hour to finish reading them. The veins on his forehead were bulging, and his eyes were burning with anger. His cold and handsome face was covered with dark clouds, which was very frightening. Ji Bowen didn't even care about the meeting in the afternoon. He took the photos and went home angrily. When he found Qin Tingfang, she was entertaining a few rich ladies at home. The four of them gathered together to play mahjong. Qin Tingfang saw his livid face and knew something was wrong. She quickly smiled and said, "Honey, why are you back? I invited a few friends to play at home. This is Mrs. Lin, Mrs. Wang, Mrs. Zhang." Ji Bowen stood at the door like a black-faced deity. He didn't greet the other ladies. Mrs. Lin was the best at reading people's expressions. She quickly smiled and said, "I'm not playing anymore. I'm not playing anymore. I lost terribly today. Good, I'm tired too. Sister Qin, Mr. Ji will take our leave first." The three madams tactfully said their goodbyes and left. Ji Bowen let out a deep in, and didn't say any more pleasantries. Qin Tingfang hurriedly had the servants send the three of them off. The living room quickly returned to silence. Qin Tingfang knew that he didn't like her playing mahjong at home. She smiled awkwardly and said, "Hubby, I'm sorry. They said they wanted to come to our house to play and I didn't want to refuse. Don't worry, I won't let them come over next time." Ji Bowen ignored her deliberate flattery. His face was so gloomy that water could be wrung out. He glanced at her coldly and said, "Come upstairs with me." Attention, Hongcha 866. Chapter 895. Qin Tingfang felt uneasy as she followed him into the study. Just as she closed the door, a stack of photos came flying at her face. Her body trembled and she instinctively stepped back, but her cheek was still scratched by the sharp edges of the photos. The photos scattered in the air like snowflakes and slowly drifted to the ground. One of them landed by her feet. She stared at the photos in shock, her heart filled with panic. Of course she remembered them. Xiao Yihan had taken these photos and said that they were to be mementos. Why would they appear here? Ji Bowen pointed at her nose and scolded, "Qin Tingfang, how shameless can you be? How could you do such a shameless thing? Are you worthy of me?" Qin Tingfang stared at the photos in shock and said frantically, "I didn't do it, Bowen. I really didn't do it. Those photos must have been photoshopped. Someone must be trying to frame me." Ji Bowen slammed the desk and roared, "Qin Tingfang, do you think I'm a fool? Who would be so bored as to frame you again and again?" Qin Tingfang's eyes reddened and tears fell. "I don't know either. Bowen, why won't you believe me? I love you so much. How could I do anything to let you down? I really didn't do it. If you don't believe me, I can swear to God." She raised her hand and swore, "If I did anything to let you down, I'll be struck by lightning and die a horrible death." "All right. Even if you say a lot of things this time, I won't believe you again." She was the one who had shattered his trust in her. As a man, he couldn't tolerate being cuckolded by his wife. "Bowen," Ji Bowen interrupted her and said sternly, "I warned you last time that if you dare to have any ill intentions, I'll divorce you. It seems like you ignored my words. I'll inform the lawyer now to draft the divorce agreement." As he spoke, he reached for the phone. Qin Tingfang pounced on him agitatedly and held his right hand. She cried, "No, no, Bowen. Please don't divorce me. I really love you. I can't leave you. Let go. I will never believe your words again. This marriage must be divorced. I don't want Yuchi and Ahan to be killed by a heartless woman like you." Ji Bowen's heart was already filled with anger, and he wished he could immediately kick this woman out of the house. "Bowen, have you forgotten the promise you made 30 years ago? You said that you would love me forever and take care of me forever." "Bowen, I haven't changed. I've always been the Tingfang who treated you as my sky, but you've changed. You only have your daughter and son in your heart. I don't mind if you misunderstand me or hurt me, but please don't leave me." Qin Tingfang hugged his arm and cried her heart out. She recalled their past and cried about his coldness. She confessed to him affectionately just to change her mind. Ji Bowen was upset. He did have feelings for her, but he couldn't stand her lying to him again and again. He had given her countless chances, but she had trampled on his feelings again and again. "Go away. It's too late to say anything now." He gritted his teeth and pushed her away. Qin Tingfang followed his force and fell to the ground with a plop. Then she closed her eyes and fainted. Ji Bowen had just picked up the phone and didn't have time to call when he found her unconscious on the ground. Although he was angry, he wouldn't let her lie on the ground. He immediately carried her back to the bedroom and ordered the servant to call the family doctor over. The matter of contacting a lawyer was temporarily put aside. The family doctor quickly rushed over and checked. He said that Qin Tingfang had a temporary cerebral ischemia caused by a moment of agitation. It was nothing serious and she would wake up after some rest. However, she had to pay attention to maintaining her emotional stability. Otherwise, it could cause serious consequences in the long run. Qin Tingfang was lying on the bed and had yet to wake up. Ji Bowen was pacing around the room with a sullen face. Ji Yuchi, who had heard the news, saw this scene and said softly, "Dad, I heard from the doctor that Auntie is fine. Don't worry." Ji Bowen was helpless. He wasn't worried at all. He was troubled. However, as a father, he couldn't tell his daughter about Qin Tingfang's affair. He could only nod his head. "Dad, don't stay here. Let Auntie have a good rest." Ji Yuchi held his arm. When she looked up at him, she saw that there were more white hairs on his head. Her heart felt as if it had been soaked in a bucket of vinegar. It was unbearably sour. Her eyes were hot and tears were about to flow out. She quickly looked down and forced the tears back. Ji Bowen sighed. "Okay, let's go out." The door slammed shut and the room returned to silence. Qin Tingfang slowly opened her eyes. She let out a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, she had pretended to faint. Otherwise, Ji Bowen would already be discussing the divorce agreement with the lawyer. Then she frowned again. Right now, she couldn't care less about who gave those photos to Ji Bowen. She had to think of a way to dispel Ji Bowen's thoughts of divorce. On the other side, Ji Yuchi held onto Ji Bowen's arm and accompanied him for a walk in the garden. The father and daughter walked quietly on the path. Ji Yuchi's eyes were slightly lowered. She was thinking about something. Originally, she wanted to borrow Yi Zisu's hand to make the whole city know about Qin Tingfang's affair so that she could no longer have a foothold in the upper-class society. However, she had changed her mind. If Qin Tingfang's scandal was made public, her father would also be implicated and would be laughed at by others. She couldn't let her father get hurt. She already felt guilty for letting Xiao Yihan seduce Qin Tingfang. Ji Bowen was still not used to his lively daughter snuggling up to him like an obedient little bunny. He pressed his right hand on the top of her head and said gently, "Chi-Chi, what are you thinking about?" Ji Yuchi looked up at him. Although he had a kind smile on his face, she could still see a faint gloominess between his brows. She felt sorry and guilty. She said softly, "Dad, I'm sorry." Did you get into trouble again?" Ji Bowen deliberately put on a stern face. Ji Yuchi hurriedly shook her head. Thinking that something was wrong, she nodded again. Ji Bowen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Did you get into trouble or not?" She didn't answer his question. Instead, she asked, "Dad, if I knew that someone was a bad person, but I still deliberately induced her to do bad things because she did bad things and ended up hurting others. Dad, am I wrong to do this?" Ji Bowen was startled as he looked at his daughter in front of him. Her eyes revealed a trace of confusion as if she was a lost child. He naturally rubbed her hair and gently said, "Before I answer your question, answer me first. What is your purpose in doing this?" Ji Yuchi bit her lips. "I want to take revenge on that person and protect the people I care about." Only by completely destroying the relationship between Qin Tingfang and her father could she drive Qin Tingfang out of the Ji family. Moreover, she wanted Qin Tingfang and Yi Zhisu to turn against each other and hurt each other. There was a kind of battle called killing with a borrowed knife, and there was also a kind of battle called killing without shedding a drop of blood. Ji Bowen's eyes moved slightly. He looked at her with a complicated expression and said meaningfully, "Since you want to protect the people you care about, I'm sure you'll be able to get through the harm. Chi-Chi, there's no such thing as right or wrong in this world. As long as you have a clear conscience, that's enough." Ji-Yuchi's lips quivered a few times. She really wanted to tell him the truth, but when the words reached the tip of her tongue, she lost her courage. She avoided his deep gaze and said softly, "I understand, Dad." She didn't see that the moment she lowered her head, disappointment flashed across Ji Bowen's eyes. From Yuchi's words, he had already guessed who had sent those photos to him. However, since his daughter didn't want to say it, he wouldn't force her. At least, he knew that she had good intentions. In the master bedroom. "I heard that you're sick. I also heard that Uncle Ji wants to divorce you." The eerie and cold voice was right next to her ear. Qin Tingfang woke up abruptly. She opened her eyes and saw a magnified pale face. She was so frightened that she screamed and quickly moved back. Why are you hiding? I'm not going to eat you." Yi Zhisu covered her mouth with one hand and laughed sinisterly. She moved back and sat on the chair next to the bed. You. Qin Tingfang was frightened by the pale makeup on her face. She didn't recover for a long time. She pointed at her face and said intermittently, "Wipe off the white powder on your face. You scared me to death. Tisich, why do you care what makeup I put on?" Yi Zhisu's cold gaze was glued to her. She curled her lips in disdain. "Pretending to be sick again? You're really something." Qin Tingfang's heart was filled with Yihan. She cried out involuntarily, "Zhisu, I'm your mother. Do you really want to be enemies with me? I gave birth to you after carrying you for 10 months. I raised you painstakingly. Is this how you repay me? I've heard these words of yours for more than 20 years. My ears are getting calluses. You've always wanted to marry me off to a rich man. You just want to ride on my coattails. In your eyes, a daughter like me isn't as important as money. Don't make it sound like I've wronged you. You're the one who wronged me first." Qin Tingfang was so angry that her voice trembled. "I admit that Yihan and I used to be together. But at that time, there was nothing between the two of you. When you said that you loved him, I also thought of backing out. I really didn't know that he went back to America. Why won't you believe me? Touch your conscience and ask yourself. All these years, when have I ever mistreated you? I've treated you like a treasure since you were young. I held you in my hands and was afraid that you'd fall. I kept you in my mouth and was afraid that you'd melt." "Stop." Yi Zhisu impatiently interrupted her incessant chatter. She stood up and looked down at her condescendingly. Her gaze was cold as she said, "What you've just said is what a mother should do. What's there to be proud of? You caused Yihan's death. You caused the death of the person I love the most. We can never go back to the past." Hongcha 866. Chapter 896. Qin Tingfang grabbed her arm and said anxiously, "What did you say? What do you mean by causing Yihan's death? What happened to Yihan?" Yi Zhisu turned her head abruptly. Her cold gaze seemed to be laced with poison as she said fiercely, "I won't allow you to call Yihan by his name. You don't deserve it. If it weren't for you, he wouldn't have returned to America, and he wouldn't have gotten into a car accident. It's all because of you that he's dead." Qin Tingfang looked as if she had been struck by lightning. Her face turned pale as she shook her head in disbelief. "How could he? You must be lying to me." Yi Zhisu looked as if she had heard a funny joke. She laughed so hard that tears rolled down her cheeks. She shouted hysterically, "Lying to you? I also hope that it's a lie, but I heard it with my own ears. Yihan is dead. The man I love will never come back." Qin Tingfang had been waiting for Xiao Yihan's news. She didn't expect to hear that he was no longer alive. Her vision immediately turned black and she slumped onto the bed. Seeing her heartbroken expression, Yi Zhisu was only moved for a second before she quickly regained her cold expression. From the moment Yihan passed away, there was no longer any mother-daughter relationship between her and Qin Tingfang. Qin Tingfang was disheartened at first. Later, she hugged the blanket and cried bitterly. She didn't even know when Yi Zhisu left. In the evening, Ji Bowen came upstairs, intending to continue discussing the divorce with Qin Tingfang. Qin Tingfang was in low spirits. Her eyes were red and swollen, and it was obvious that she had cried. She sat on the sofa listlessly and said calmly, "If you insist on getting a divorce and abandoning your child, I have no objections." Ji Bowen's eyebrows twitched. He asked in a low voice, "What do you mean?" She looked down and stroked her abdomen with her right hand. She smiled bitterly and said, "It's unbelievable, isn't it? I'm already so old, but I'm pregnant. Otherwise, why do you think I suddenly fainted after falling? This child is really lucky that his father didn't kill him." Her sarcastic tone made Ji Bowen very uncomfortable. At the same time, it evoked the guilt in his heart. He pursed his lips and said coldly, "It's still not certain if this child is mine. Do I need to remind you that we haven't slept together for more than a month?" Qin Tingfang seemed to be exhausted. She leaned on the soft cushion and said weakly, "It's your memory's bad. A month and a half ago you went to a party and drank? And you drank too much and to forget what you did. If you don't believe me, you'll do a paternity test after the child. Since you're pregnant, why did you only tell me now? Is this an excuse you made up at the last minute?" Qin Tingfang shook her head helplessly. "I only found out today. I didn't have time to tell you, and you? Besides, I can lie to you about being pregnant for a while, but can I lie to you for 10 months? Forget it. I'm very tired. I don't want to argue with you." Ji Bowen was speechless. If she was really pregnant with his child, of course he couldn't divorce her. If word got out, people would only say that he, Ji Bowen, had abandoned his wife and child. He thought for a moment and said, "I'll accompany you to the hospital tomorrow for a prenatal checkup." Accompanying her to the hospital for a prenatal checkup sounded nice, but he actually wanted to see if she was pregnant or not. Qin Tingfang sneered inwardly, but she wasn't afraid. She had already made arrangements in the afternoon. The director of the obstetrics and gynecology department in the city hospital was a friend of her cousin, Lu Jianfeng. It was only a matter of minutes for him to forge a fake prenatal checkup report. Mrs. G is already 7 weeks pregnant. For an elderly woman like Mrs. G, the risk of pregnancy is higher. You have to maintain a good mood and do a good prenatal monitoring and checkup. Yang Hao, the director of the obstetrics and gynecology department, said to Ji Bowen and his wife. Qin Tingfang couldn't hide the joy on her face. She kept asking about things she should take note of, as if it was her first pregnancy. Ji Bowen didn't look good. He already had 2 children, and he didn't have much hope for the child in Qin Tingfang's belly. Besides, the child might not be his own. He felt frustrated at the thought of that. After Qin Tingfang and Yang Hao finished talking, Ji Bowen asked Yang Hao alone, "Dr. Yang, is there any way to do a paternity test before a pregnant woman gives birth?" Yang Hao was shocked, but he didn't show it on his face. He smiled and said, "You can do an amniocentesis DNA test after 16 weeks of pregnancy, but there's still a certain risk. Besides, Mrs. G is an elderly woman, so the risk is even higher, so I don't recommend doing that. It's best to wait until the baby is born." Yang Hao had received benefits from Qin Tingfang, and Lu Jianfeng had also given him a heads-up. Naturally, he had to do his best to sway Ji Bowen and dispel any thoughts of Ji Bowen. Although Ji Bowen didn't like the child who came at the wrong time, he didn't want Qin Tingfang to take the risk, so he quickly gave up on the idea of doing a fetal test. However, he couldn't get a divorce for the time being. Ever since Qin Tingfang was pregnant, she had been staying at home obediently. When the ladies asked her out, she would reject them because she was pregnant. Soon, everyone knew about her pregnancy. Even if Ji Bowen was worried about what outsiders thought, he wouldn't ask for a divorce at this time, Qin Tingfang thought smugly. "Madam, this is the freshest cherries. It was just flown in from Canada. Try it." "Madam, the kitchen just made some nutritious porridge. Have some." "Madam?" In the living room, the servants were scrambling to persuade Qin Tingfang to eat something. As for Qin Tingfang, she was nestled on the sofa with a pale face. She helplessly sighed, "I don't want to eat. I have no appetite." Ji Bowen was sitting beside her with a newspaper in his hand. He looked up at her and said, "It's been hard on you. Your pregnancy reaction is too strong. Wasn't it hard to pretend to be pregnant and vomit?" Qin Tingfang stroked her belly and smiled. Her eyes were gentle and kind. "Maybe I'm old and can't stand this little ancestor's torment. When he comes out, I'll definitely spank his little butt for tormenting me like this." Yi Zixu chuckled and covered her mouth. "Mom, didn't you say that you could eat and drink when you were pregnant with me and that your pregnancy reaction was very small? Maybe you're pregnant with a little brother this time. It's obvious that boys and girls are different." Although she was joking, Qin Tingfang felt that it was a little harsh. She forced herself to smile. "It's hard to say whether it's a boy or a girl, but it's definitely tormenting. It's not even born yet and it's already tormenting me like this. Won't it be worse when it's born? How could Yi Zissou not understand that she was implying? The smile on her lips froze and her eyes turned cold. She cursed her in her heart countless times. Jiuqi said that she enjoyed watching the show, but she had more important things to do. After eating the fruit she went upstairs. Just as she returned to her room, Liang Yu called. Miss Ji, I've investigated the matter you asked me to investigate. The doctor who helped Qin Tingfang is called Yang Hao. He's Lu Jianfeng's elementary school classmate. He admitted that he took Qin Tingfang's bribe and helped her forge the pregnancy report. In short, Qin Tingfang isn't pregnant at all. She nodded and said, "Thank you for your hard work, Liang Yu." Qin Tingfang didn't get pregnant earlier or later. She got pregnant when her scandal was exposed and her father wanted to divorce her. It was too much of a coincidence. It was so coincidental that it was suspicious, so she asked Liang Yu to help investigate. This time she wouldn't do it herself. She would leave the task of chasing Qin Tingfang out of the Ji family to Yi Zissou. Jiuqi's slender fingers played with a USB flash drive. The USB flash drive stored the video of Jiang Tianhao abusing Yi Zissou. A few days later, Qin Tingfang accidentally found Yi Zissou's laptop in Xiao Yihan's room. She immediately realized that Yi Zissou had seen photos of her and Xiao Yihan being intimate on the computer. She had developed the photos and sent them to Ji Bowen. She never expected that the daughter she had raised would really lay a hand on her. She, who had suffered a huge blow, was furious and heartbroken. She couldn't help but call Yi Zissou to her room. She pointed at her nose and scolded, "Are you still human? How could you harm your own mother? Even if I divorce Ji Bowen, what benefits can you get?" Yi Zissou's face was distorted with anger. "Even if I can't get anything, I don't want to see you living comfortably. Why are you still living like a rich wife when the man I love is dead? You're crazy." Qin Tingfang was flustered and exasperated. She ruthlessly slapped her. "Hurry up and wake up. Humph, I'm crazy. I've been crazy since Yihan died." Yi Zissou covered her cheek with her hand and said coldly, "This slap is to repay you for raising me. From now on, I don't owe you anything. Take care of yourself. Don't let me catch you." Otherwise, she wouldn't let her have an easy time. Qin Tingfang was heartbroken by her daughter's heartlessness. 2 days after this incident, a video of Jiang Tianhao beating Yi Zissou appeared on the internet. Some people even posted that the second daughter of the Ji family, Miss Yi Zissou, had been sexually abused by her ex-husband ever since she got married. They also said that the reason they divorced was because Yi Zissou couldn't stand Jiang Tianhao's abuse. The love story between a rich girl and a rich man was just a joke. Yi Zissou and Jiang Tianhao had a low-key divorce. So many people didn't know about it. Now that their marriage was exposed, it immediately became a hot topic on the internet. Even some gossip media and magazines jumped in front of Yi Zissou to ask her for confirmation. Needless to say, at school, everyone looked at her with colored glasses. People who hated her even created all kinds of rumors, saying that Jiang Tianhao abused her because she had an affair. Some people even said that Jiang Tianhao married her because she seduced him. Attention, Songshu 566. Chapter 897. She was the victim, so why was she the one being blamed? Yi Zissou was about to go crazy, but the person she hated the most was Qin Tingfang. She rushed back to the Ji family as fast as she could, and when she passed by the garden, she heard someone whispering. "It's amazing that Madam can still get pregnant at such an old age. Let me tell you, I suspect Madam is pretending. Didn't you see how well she's been at home recently? Shoo, someone's coming. Let's go." Yi Zissou was in a hurry to settle the score with Qin Tingfang, so she didn't ask who was secretly discussing it. However, she took the words about fake pregnancy to heart. She ran all the way until she was in front of Qin Tingfang. Disregarding everything, she slapped her and scolded coldly, "Be asterisk tisich." Qin Tingfang was stunned by her slap. Then she was furious. "You bastard, how dare you hit me? I'm your mother. Shut up. I don't have a vicious mother like you. You call me a bastard, but I think you're worse than a bastard. You keep saying that I'm your daughter, but have you ever considered me? You actually posted the video of Jiang Tianhao abusing me online, and you even let people say that I've been sexually abused by him for a long time. Have you ever thought about the consequences of doing this?" Yi Zissou yelled hysterically. She had reached an agreement with Jiang Tianhao that she wouldn't expose the video of domestic abuse, and Jiang Tianhao wouldn't expose the evidence of her and her daughter's evil deeds. Now, what awaited her was Jiang Tianhao's revenge. She suddenly grinned. "Don't you want to have this child? Let's see how you're going to give birth. As soon as she finished speaking, she pushed Qin Tingfang hard. Qin Tingfang lost her balance and fell to the ground with a plop. Qin Tingfang was in so much pain that she gritted her teeth and pretended to hold her stomach. Zissou, calm down. I wasn't the one who exposed that video. You've really wronged me. It's useless no matter how you quibble. Zissou stood in front of her, waiting for her to bleed and lose the child in her stomach. Qin Tingfang knew her intentions and pretended to cry out, "Ouch, it hurts. My child, Zissou, hurry up and call the doctor." It's better if the child is aborted. Zissou waited for a long time but there was no bloody scene. She sneered and squatted in front of Qin Tingfang. An ordinary pregnant woman might bleed from a fall, but you're so old that you're not hurt at all. Then there's only one possibility, and that is that you're pretending to be pregnant. Am I right? Qin Tingfang's expression changed. Zissou confirmed her guess and said sarcastically, "I knew it. You haven't been pregnant for so many years, but when Ji Bowen wanted to divorce you, you got pregnant. How lucky are you?" Qin Tingfang's face turned pale. She gritted her teeth and said, "I'm really pregnant. This child is tough, so you didn't kill it." "Humph, I didn't expect you to admit it." She would expose her in front of Ji Bowen. After the domestic violence video was publicized, Jiang Tianhao's life became worse. He was laughed at by his male colleagues, regarded as a scourge by his female colleagues, and even criticized by his neighbors. He blamed all of this on Zissou. He wanted revenge. In the dark night, there were stars twinkling in the sky. Jiuqi clutched her handbag and walked alone on the tree-lined road of the capital university. A tall figure suddenly walked out of the woods and blocked her way. He called out in a deep voice, "Yuqi?" Although Jiuqi wasn't timid, she was still taken aback when someone suddenly appeared in front of her to block her way. She narrowed her eyes and used the dim light to size up the newcomer. He was immaculately dressed, and there was obvious fatigue between his handsome brows. There was already some stubble on his chin. She could tell that he had been having a bad time recently. She was expressionless and said lightly, "Mr. Jiang, what can I do for you?" Jiang Tianhao clenched his briefcase and took a step forward. "Yuqi, even if we can't be lovers, we are still friends. Why are you so cold to me?" Jiuqi took a step back and lifted her chin slightly. "Don't come so close. I can hear you. Mr. Jiang, please tell me. Why are you looking for me?" He hated her condescending tone and arrogant gaze. The veins on his forehead throbbed a few times. He tried to suppress his anger and said in a deep voice, "Yuqi, I know you hate me. I really regret not rejecting Zissou back then. It wasn't until recently that I found out that she was vicious and did many things to hurt you." Jiuqi raised her eyebrows. "You wanted to use her to deal with Zissou. Not bad." She chuckled. "This joke isn't funny at all. Zissou and I are good friends. How could she hurt me?" Jiang Tianhao took out a USB flash drive from his briefcase. "This is evidence of Zissou and her mother plotting to hurt you. It also has their conversation." Jiuqi glanced at the USB flash drive in his hand but didn't reach out to take it. She said expressionlessly, "Since you already have the evidence, why are you only giving it to me now?" Jiang Tianhao looked guilty. "I'm sorry. Zissou and I hadn't divorced back then. She begged me to forgive her and said that she would never hurt you again, so I wanted to give her a chance. But now that she has returned to the Ji family, I'm worried that she will continue to hurt you, so I'm giving this to you. I want you to be vigilant and not be hurt by her again." What a perfect excuse. Unfortunately, Jiuqi didn't need the evidence, and she didn't want to be used by Jiang Tianhao. She smiled. "Thank you for your concern. I'll be vigilant, but I don't need the evidence. If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving first." "Wait." Jiang Tianhao gritted his teeth, grabbed her arm and said, "Yuqi, aren't you curious about what Zissou has done? Are you willing to be schemed against and hurt by her? That's my business. You don't have to worry about it." Jiuqi stared at his hand with a fierce gaze. He had never seen her like this before. He felt a chill in his heart and let go of his hand. As if she had been stained by something dirty, Jiuqi very naturally reached out and patted the place where he had grabbed her. She didn't say anything else and directly walked past him. What was there to be proud of? She was just a broken shoe that he had thrown away. Jiang Tianhao stared at her back as she walked away. He clenched his fists in anger. His hatred for the Ji family, Jiuqi, and Zissou continued to accumulate until it reached its peak. Jiuqi didn't take the bait, so Jiang Tianhao had no choice but to take action himself. He presented the evidence of Qin Tingfang and her daughter's evil deeds to Ji Bowen. Ji Bowen's anger turned into forbearance. As long as Qin Tingfang's child was not his, he would immediately divorce her and chase the troublemaker mother and daughter out of the Ji family. Qin Tingfang and her daughter didn't know about it yet. They only cared about fighting and tearing each other down. It was very lively. Ji Bowen was too lazy to care about them. Jiuqi couldn't wait for someone to make trouble for Qin Tingfang. Of course she wouldn't stop them. She could only secretly add fuel to the fire. It was the weekend. Other than Yi Zissou, everyone was there. Jiuqi was bathing the Samyet in the garden. Ji Bowen was sitting on the sofa reading the newspaper. Qin Tingfang was sitting beside him watching a Korean drama. She was holding a tissue and crying. Ji Yunhan was playing with his phone. When he heard Qin Tingfang sobbing softly, he curled his lips in disdain. He didn't know what was so good about those tear-jerking dramas. At this moment, Yi Zissou led a white-haired old doctor into the living room. Everyone looked up at her. She smiled and said, "Uncle Ji, Mom, this is Dr. Li. Dr. Li is the most famous Chinese doctor in Ying City. Mom, your pregnancy symptoms have been too severe recently. You can't eat anything. My heart aches when I see you like that, so I specially invited Dr. Li to take a look at you." Qin Tingfang hurriedly wiped the tears off her face and smiled unnaturally. "Zissou, I'm very happy that you care so much about me. However, I'm much better now. I don't need to trouble Dr. Li anymore." "How can that be? Pregnancy is a big deal. Moreover, you're at an advanced age. The risk is greater. Don't refuse anymore. Dr. Li, please take a look at my mom." Yi Zissou invited Dr. Li to sit opposite Qin Tingfang. Then she said with a smile, "Mom, stretch out your right hand. Let Dr. Li take your pulse." Qin Tingfang cursed in her heart. If she had known that she had given birth to an ingrate, she would have strangled her to death the moment she was born. "There's really no need. I'm a little sleepy. I want to go upstairs and rest for a while." Qin Tingfang had just stood up. Before she could escape, Ji Bowen suddenly said, "Tingfang, since Dr. Li is already here, we can't let him come here for nothing. Let him take your pulse and prescribe some pregnancy medicine for you. Dr. Li, please." Dr. Li nodded. "Mrs. Ji, please stretch out your right hand." Qin Tingfang was anxious and couldn't find an excuse. She avoided his hand and hurriedly stepped back. Her knee hit the sofa's armrest and she staggered to the floor. She gritted her teeth and decided to use her arm as a support to fall to the ground. It would be best if she could scratch her skin and make some wounds to fool the doctor. Unexpectedly, a pair of arms firmly supported her back, supporting her entire body. Jiuqi's gentle voice came from behind her. "Auntie Qin, are you all right?" Qin Tingfang's smile was uglier than crying. I'm fine. Fortunately, you're here to support me." "That's right. You're pregnant now, so you have to be careful." Jiuqi smiled sweetly. "Auntie Qin, Dr. Li has been waiting for you for a long time. Let him take a look at your hand." "That's right, Mom. Don't let me down." Yi Zissou was smiling, but in Qin Tingfang's eyes she was scarier than a venomous snake. Several pairs of eyes were on Qin Tingfang. Under everyone's gaze she had no choice and no reason to refuse. She could only reach out her trembling hand. Attention, Songshu 566. Chapter 898. Dr. Li put his finger on her wrist and closed his eyes to feel it. He opened his eyes slowly and looked helpless. No wonder the lady didn't want to let him take her pulse. He shook his head and said, "Mr. G, Mrs. G isn't pregnant. I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave." Ji Bowen's expression changed a few times, but he finally calmed down and asked the butler to see the guests out. After Dr. Li left, the atmosphere in the living room froze. Qin Tingfang felt like she was sitting on pins and needles. She wanted to say something, but she swallowed her words when she saw Ji Bowen's dark face. Ji Bowen didn't fly into a rage as Yi Zissou expected, nor did he say anything. Instead, he picked up the phone and called the lawyer to come to the Ji residence. The lawyer was naturally to draft the divorce agreement. Qin Tingfang's face was pale and she screamed, "Bowen, listen to me. I really don't know what's going on." Ji Bowen looked tired. He waved his hand and said, "You don't have to say anything. We'll sit down and talk when the lawyer comes." Yi Zissou smiled in satisfaction. She knew that she wouldn't benefit from the divorce between Ji Bowen and Qin Tingfang, but it didn't matter. She just didn't want Qin Tingfang to be comfortable. Why should Xiao Yihan die because of her? Her reputation was ruined because of her, but she was still living comfortably? Jiuqi and Ji Yunhan looked at each other and found an excuse to leave. The siblings each rode a bicycle and walked side by side in the cool autumn wind. Ji Yunhan thought of something and smiled. "Sister, You were the one who uploaded the video of Yi Zisu being abused by Jiang Tianhao, right? Where did you find it? Jiuqi's long hair fluttered in the wind. She blinked and said with a smile, "Of course I stole it from Chen Tingfang. What do you think? I did a good job of framing her, didn't I?" Ji Yunhan held onto the steering wheel with one hand and gave a thumbs up with the other as he smiled. "Well done, as expected of my sister." The laughter of the two echoed on the mountain road. The golden leaves danced in the air. The two bicycles leisurely traveled in this fairy tale-like scenery towards the sunset. After the children left, Chen Tingfang followed Ji Bowen into the study. She wanted to save their marriage, but Ji Bowen was determined. He refused to listen to her explanation, and he didn't want to maintain the marriage. The lawyer quickly arrived and said that Chen Tingfang was the one at fault for having an affair. According to the law, the innocent party could ask the guilty party for less or no share of the property. Ji Bowen remembered their old friendship, so he was not so heartless. He proposed to give 30% of all the property to Chen Tingfang and her daughter. This 30% was enough for Chen Tingfang and Yi Zisu to live comfortably for the rest of their lives. However, Chen Tingfang was ambitious and was not satisfied with the division of property. Since both sides had fallen out, she no longer pretended to be gentle and magnanimous. She insisted on sharing the property equally. Of course, Ji Bowen didn't agree. He worked so hard to build the business and wanted to leave it to his daughter and son. How could he give half of it to Chen Tingfang? Chen Tingfang sneered. "I've been married to you for so many years. I helped you with the housework, took care of the children, accompanied you to socialize, and helped you open up the business circle. Your achievements today are also due to me. I ask for half of the property. That's what I deserve." Ji Bowen was infuriated by her shameless words. He said angrily, "There are so many servants in the house. Since when did you need to do the housework yourself? Take care of the children? You still have the nerve to mention it? You framed Yuchi and Ahan time and time again. I haven't settled the score with you yet. You play mahjong every day, go shopping, and do beauty treatments. You call that socializing? Don't make people laugh their heads off. I won't give you 30% of the property, not a cent more." Chen Tingfang's face turned green and red after being scolded by him in front of the lawyer. Fortunately, she was thick-skinned and quickly calmed down. She said calmly, "Okay, since we can't negotiate, let's meet in court. We'll see whose side the judge is on." Ji Bowen was furious. He slammed the table and said, "Okay, let's meet in court. I'm not afraid of you." Because of the division of property, Ji Bowen and Chen Tingfang completely fell out. The two of them lived under the same roof and saw each other frequently, but they didn't speak more than 3 sentences a day. Yi Zisu was very self-aware. She kept a low profile and no longer hung around the two of them and annoyed them. She went to school during the day and went to nightclubs to pass the time at night. She indulged in a life of luxury and numbed her nerves. She wanted to use this opportunity to forget Xiao Yihan. The pure and innocent goddess of the past was already dead. The one who was alive now was an enchanting demoness who bloomed at night. She wore heavy makeup every day and shuttled through lively bars and nightclubs. She flirted with different people, went on a boat with different people, and woke up in different places. At first, this kind of life made her feel very excited. Slowly, she began to feel empty. It was like a boat that had lost its direction and was drifting in the sea. The man who had once pointed out the direction for her was no longer around. She was left alone in despair. During this period of time, Jiuqi's life was very relaxed. Chen Tingfang was busy fighting for property with Ji Bowen, and Yi Zisu was busy indulging in debauchery. For the time being, no one bothered her. Free company was operating well. With Qing Sang in charge, she didn't need to spend too much energy. She couldn't be more relaxed. The cold December wind was biting cold. She wrapped herself in an apricot-colored windbreaker and walked to the parking lot. A familiar figure stood beside her car. He had a tall and straight figure, a handsome face, and sexy thin lips as he gazed deeply at her. Like a spring breeze, Jiuqi's cold face was immediately adorned with a smile. She quickly walked forward and stretched out her arms to hug him. She leaned her head against his chest. "Aja, I missed you so much." Shenja wrapped her in his arms and kissed her forehead. His magnetic voice was full of warmth. "I missed you too." During the 3 days of his business trip, his mind was filled with her. The work that would have taken him 5 days to complete was shortened by him and his subordinates staying up late. They rushed back to her side as quickly as possible. The wind was cold outside, but it was as warm as spring inside the car. Jiuqi sat in the front passenger seat. She leaned her right arm against the car window and tilted her head to look at Shenja. She couldn't hide the smile in her eyes. She secretly mocked herself in her heart. Was this what it meant to be apart for a day? The person she missed had suddenly appeared in front of her. She couldn't help but want to take a few more glances at him. Shenja turned his head to look at her. His deep eyes were full of smiles. I'm off tomorrow. How about we go to Hawaii? Sure. Jiuchi was mesmerized by his beauty and answered without hesitation. Shenja laughed softly. Good girl. Jiuchi seemed to have woken up from a dream. She held her forehead with one hand and said with a headache, I can't. I have class tomorrow. Shenja freed a hand and rubbed her fluffy curly hair. He smiled and said, Little fool, you can take the day off. Jiuchi pouted unhappily. But the exams are coming up. I'm worried that the teacher will highlight the important points if I'm absent. It's okay. You can borrow Lin Yushi's class notes. Young Master Shen was like a kind grandmother wolf. He revealed an amiable smile and spared no effort to persuade her. All right, young Master Shen. Seeing that you're so sincere, will accompany you overseas to relax. But when we're in Hawaii, you're not allowed to stare at other beautiful women. Beach bikinis and whatnot. They're 2 nosebleeds. Jiuchi counted on her fingers and nagged at a certain someone before they even left the country. Okay. Shenja nodded good-naturedly and said seriously, In my eyes, you're the most beautiful woman. I just have to look at you. Jiuchi smiled. Wow, you really know how to do things. I like it very much. Since you like it so much, is there a reward? The certain someone who was driving pointed at his cheek and glanced at her. His meaning was obvious. Not now. Drive seriously. She knew a certain someone very well. Once she kissed him, it would not be as simple as a kiss. The car drove out of the city and wound around the mountain roads. Finally, it stopped outside the largest cemetery in the suburbs. The weather was gloomy and cold, without a trace of sunlight. The surrounding trees were lush, and it was silent. The cold wind blew and the leaves rustled. Looking into the distance, there were black tombstones standing neatly in the garden. They could not see the end of the tombstones in a radius of 100 meters. It was eerie and solemn. Shenja held the lilies in one hand and held Jiuchi's hand in the other as they walked on the tree-lined path. He held her hand tightly. His handsome face was cold and his thin lips were pursed tightly. There was grief and indignation in his eyes. Jiuchi felt that something was wrong with him. She patted the back of his hand gently. He turned his head. Her lips were pursed gently. Even without any words, he could feel her comfort. His furrowed brows relaxed and his tense body slowly relaxed. He held her hand tightly and explained gently, Today is the anniversary of my mother's death. Jiuchi pursed her lips coquettishly. You should have told me earlier. Hurry up and help me see if Auntie will like me dressed up like this. With that said, she let go of his hand and twirled in front of him. She looked at him expectantly and even blinked her beautiful eyes as if to say, Hurry up and praise me. His heart warmed. He pulled her into his arms and kissed her forehead lovingly. He said softly, This is good. No matter how you dress up, Mom will like you. As long as it was something he liked, his mother would like it. Jiuchi rubbed her cool cheek against his and said in a playful tone, Hey, when you see Auntie later, tell her that I bought the lilies. Otherwise, Auntie will definitely think that I'm very immature. Who would casually buy the lilies on their first meeting with their elders? I'm okay. Shenja's heart was unbelievably soft. This was the first time he had stepped into this cemetery. The hatred in his heart had disappeared, and only warmth was left. Add Songshu 566. Chapter 899. The two of them held hands as they walked down the long path and stopped in front of a black tombstone. The cold tombstone was inlaid with a picture of a young woman. Her features were picturesque and she looked very similar to Shenja. She was a typical Jiangnan woman, gentle and beautiful. Shenja squatted down and placed the lilies in front of the tombstone. He stroked the woman's picture with his fingertips and his thin lips curved gently. Mom, I'm here to see you. The one standing beside me is Yuchi. She's your future daughter-in-law. She bought the lilies for you. Do you like them? Jiuchi's cheeks flushed red. She was just playing around to make him happy. She didn't expect him to say it in front of Mrs. Shen's tombstone. Would he be suspected of deceiving the deceased? She hurriedly squatted beside Shenja and explained with a smile, Auntie, Aja actually bought the lilies for you. I was just joking with him. Don't be angry. The next time I come to see you, I'll definitely buy you the most beautiful flowers. Shenja stared at the woman on the tombstone and a smile appeared in his eyes. he said in a low voice. Mom, do you see that? Yuchi is a very good girl. You don't have to worry about me anymore. Jiyuchi's heart was filled with warmth. She patted her chest and promised, Auntie, don't worry. I'll take good care of Shinja. Shinja's heart was as warm as spring. The smile on his lips deepened and he teased, I should be the one saying that to you. Jiyuchi thought of her mother and her eyes darkened. She quickly regained her smile. It doesn't matter who said it. We'll take care of each other anyway. Mem, you're right. He ruffled her hair and stood up holding her hand. The two of them stood quietly in front of the tombstone for a long time. It was getting late. Shinja held her hand and walked out of the tombstone. There were tall trees on both sides of the road. Fallen leaves covered the road like a thin golden carpet. The two of them walked alone, leaving behind a pair of backs that were leaning against each other. On the way home, Shinja was silent for a long time before he finally spoke. His voice was a little hoarse. When I was 4 years old, my mother was pregnant with my brother. Just as she was about to give birth, Tao Shireen came with a big belly. She fought with my mother and pushed her to the ground. My mother passed away in labor that night. In less than a month, Shin Jianhao and Tao Shireen. At that time, Tao Shireen came to the door. His mother asked the servant to take him upstairs. He curiously hid on the stairs and peeked. He saw Tao Shireen scolding his mother and even saw her slap his mother. He desperately rushed downstairs wanting to protect his mother. However, he was pushed to the ground by Tao Shireen. His mother wanted to help him up, but was also pushed by Tao Shireen. The floor was covered with blood. He lay there in a daze, not knowing what to do. The sharp-eyed servant immediately called for an ambulance, but still couldn't save his mother and the child. That pool of blood was like a nightmare that haunted Shinja throughout his youth. He hated himself and felt that he was the cause of his mother and little brother's death. Coupled with Tao Shireen's mischief, his personality became more and more withdrawn and he was less and less liked by Shin Jianhao. Ever since Tao Shireen's son Xinyu was born, he became the extra in the Shin family. If his grandfather hadn't brought him to live with the Qin family for a year and hired a psychiatrist to give him psychological guidance, he would have become an autistic child. Thinking back to that period of time, Shinja's eyes became colder and colder. He gripped the steering wheel harder and his whole body burst out with cold hatred. Although Jiyuchi knew that he didn't get along with Shin Jianhao in her previous life, she didn't know the inside story. Her heart ached and she reached out to touch his face and said softly, Aja, you're no longer alone in the future. I'll be with you. After a long period of silence, he slowly said, okay. His voice was hoarse, but it carried an irresistible firmness. In his deep eyes, the hostility had already dissipated and was buried by cold arrogance and dominance. He would not allow Shin Jianhao to hurt the woman he loved. Hawaii Beach. The blue sky, the blue sea, and the sun was shining brightly. Beauties in bikinis were everywhere on the beach. Some were laughing and playing in groups of 3 or 5, while others were walking with their male companions. Jiyuchi was lying lazily under a sun umbrella with a glass of fresh orange juice in her hand, enjoying the beautiful leisure time. Behind her was a 5-star hotel in Linhai. At this moment, Shinja was having a video conference in the hotel room. It couldn't be helped. Who told the company to have a sudden problem? The subordinates didn't dare to act on their own and could only contact the boss. Jiyuchi finished her orange juice and swam on the beach for half an hour. Shinja still hadn't come. She thought that since he was in a meeting, she couldn't go back and disturb him. So, she walked into the small bar next to the hotel, intending to enjoy the air conditioning here. Just as she stepped into the door, a gust of cold air hit her. She wasn't used to it and reflexively stopped. She hugged her arms and shivered. The person walking behind her didn't expect her to stop suddenly and almost bumped into her. That person quickly reached out to support her shoulder and apologized in English. Jiyuchi turned around and said with a smile, "It's okay. It's my fault." When she saw the person's face clearly, the smile on her face froze, and her beautiful phoenix eyes suddenly shrank. The man in front of her was a Chinese, and meeting a Chinese in Hawaii was not a strange thing. What was strange was that the man she met was called Xinyu, and he was Shinja's half-brother. Xinyu and Shinja did not look alike at all. Shinja looked like his mother, Qin Yuelan, while Xinyu looked very much like Shin Jianhao. He was simply a younger version of Shin Jianhao. His facial features were handsome and his nose bridge was very high. The tip of his nose was slightly hooked downwards, adding a bit of gloominess to his handsome face. Coupled with his eyes that were as sharp as a falcon's, it made him seem even more cold and indifferent. Even though he was smiling, Jiyuchi still felt that he was sinister and terrifying. She subconsciously raised her guard. While she was sizing up Xinyu, Xinyu was also sizing her up. She was wearing a bohemian dress and a sky-blue straw hat on her head. Her long, seaweed-like curly hair naturally draped over her shoulders. Her facial features were outstanding, and her entire face was breathtaking. As long as one looked at her, it would definitely be unforgettable. The long dress with thin straps revealed her beautiful swan-like neck, exquisite collarbone, and snow-white shoulders. Her entire body exuded the enchanting fragrance of a Esito woman, causing the blood in his body to become restless. She was indeed a rare beauty. No wonder his cheap brother fell in love with her. Xinyu smiled and said in Chinese, "Miss, you're from China, right?" Jiyuchi's lips curled up, revealing a pleasantly surprised expression. "Yes, I didn't expect you to be from China too. What a coincidence." Xinyu's smile deepened. "Since we're so fated, can we have a cup of coffee together? Wouldn't it be too inconvenient?" Jiyuchi's gaze slid to the woman beside him. She was beautiful and sexy with hot curves. She was wearing a short black skirt that just wrapped around her buttocks. Seeing Jiyuchi looking at her, she even put on a show of force and hugged Xinyu's arm. The pair of breasts in front of her chest were tightly pressed against his arm. This scene was so hot that it could cause people to have a nosebleed. Xinyu pulled back his arm without a trace and said in a calm tone, "This is my secretary, Anna. Anna, you can go back to the hotel first." Anna pouted in dissatisfaction. She wanted to act coquettishly and hug his leg, but Xinyu coldly glanced at her. She immediately cowered, quickly bowed her head and respectfully answered, "Yes." Before leaving, while Xinyu wasn't paying attention, Anna fiercely glared at Jiyuchi. Obviously, she regarded Jiyuchi as an imaginary enemy. Jiyuchi expressed that he was shot even when he was lying down. Xinyu gentlemanly stretched out his arm and made an inviting gesture. "Please. Thank you." The two chose a seat by the window where they could see the blue sea, the beautiful coconut trees, and the beautiful bikini scenery on the beach. After ordering the coffee, Xinyu introduced himself in a gentlemanly manner. "I'm Xinyu. What's Mrs. name?" Jiyuchi pretended not to recognize him and reported his name with a smile. Xinyu stirred the coffee in the cup with a small spoon. A faint smile flashed across his cold, thin lips. His tone seemed to be a bit ambiguous. "Sir, Mrs. name is too estranged. Can I call you Yuchi?" "Okay, the name is for people to call. Mr. Shin, are you also here to travel?" Jiyuchi felt a chill in her heart. If she didn't intend to probe his purpose, she would be too lazy to pay attention to him. Xinyu shrugged, showing the humor of an English gentleman. "You better call me Xinyu. Otherwise, I'll mistakenly think that I'm still negotiating with a client. Work is squeezing my brain until it's about to explode, so I chose to come here to relax." Jiyuchi readily called out Xinyu, and then asked curiously, "May I ask, what do you do for a living?" Xinyu leaned back comfortably on the chair, naturally revealing the temperament of an aristocrat. He smiled faintly. "Take a guess." Jiyuchi held her chin with one hand and frowned as if she was thinking hard. Then she suddenly realized. "Xinyu. This name is so familiar. Don't tell me you're the CEO of the Shin Group, Xinyu?" Xinyu nodded slightly. "Yes." Jiyuchi didn't believe him and asked, "Ing City's richest man, the second young master of the Shin family?" Xinyu nodded again. "That's right." Jiyuchi stirred the coffee uneasily. She looked embarrassed and her tone was a little flustered. "I didn't expect to meet you here." Xinyu's gaze turned cold. He automatically interpreted her behavior as a guilty conscience because her relationship with Shenja was still a secret. His lips moved. Just as he was about to speak, she suddenly stood up in a panic and said anxiously, "I'm sorry, I suddenly remembered something important. I have to hurry back to the hotel." Xinyu grabbed her wrist and stared at her with his deep eyes. There was some doubt in his expression. "Yuchi, you seem to be afraid of me?" No, I really have something to do. I have to go back. Please let go of me." This time, her expression became flustered as if she had done something wrong. Awesome novel Shinwu 799. Chapter 900. Xinyu narrowed his eyes. He was certain that she must be afraid that he would find out about her relationship with Shenja. He didn't expect that someone as smart as Shenja would find such a stupid woman who only had beauty but no brains. His mind raced as he tried to figure out how to pry Shenja's secret from her. Unexpectedly, a strong gust of wind rushed towards his cheek. He quickly dodged, but the furious fist still brushed past his cheek. The huge force made him lose his balance and his leg hit the chair next to him, making a loud noise and shocking the guests in the bar. Shinja's handsome figure stood in front of Shinyu. He protected Jiuchi behind him and stared at Shinyu with his sharp eyes. His cold voice sent chills down Shinyu's spine. I'm warning you, don't you dare have any ideas about Yuchi. Otherwise I won't let you off. Shinyu touched his cheek. He swore that it must be swollen. Damn it, he was just careless and got hit by that lunatic. Shinyu retracted his hand hatefully. His malicious eyes flashed with a sinister light. It seems that your taste isn't very good. This woman can't even compare to Aisha. He took a step forward and leaned close to Shinja's ear. His low voice was cold. Do you still remember her? Cute little Aisha. Aisha. Jiuchi had never heard of this name. She turned her head instinctively and looked at Shinja. She saw that his face was extremely gloomy and his deep eyes were surging with anger. He squeezed out a few words from between his teeth. Shut up, you don't deserve to mention her name. Shinyu stepped back and tidied up his clothes slowly. He said casually, don't forget what happened to Aisha. He paused for a moment before shifting his gaze to Jiuchi. A charming, gentlemanly smile appeared on his face. Yuchi, anyone who has anything to do with Shinja will never have a good ending. Why don't you consider throwing yourself into my arms? The corner of Jiuchi's mouth twitched. She didn't want to talk to him, but she felt Shinja tighten his grip on her hand. She shook his hand back and raised her chin proudly. Sir, please call me Miss G. We're not familiar with each other. Of course, if you're willing to act like a younger brother, I'll allow you to call me sister-in-law. Shinyu's eyes narrowed and he smiled sinisterly. I didn't expect you to have such a sharp tongue. Interesting, I suddenly feel like I'm starting to like you. The anger in Shinja's eyes intensified and a violent aura erupted from his body. He pulled Jiuchi into his arms and announced in a domineering manner, Yuchi is my fiancé. If you dare to talk nonsense again, I'll consider making you unable to speak again. Shinyu shrugged his shoulders and smiled gently. Alright, it's just a joke. Why are you so serious about it? I'm actually not interested in your baby at all. You know that I like women with big breasts and perky butts. Alright, you guys have fun. As he spoke, he reached out to pat Shinja's shoulder. Shinja hugged Jiuchi and quickly dodged. The disgust in his eyes was undisguised. Shinju didn't take it seriously. He shrugged his shoulders and called the waiter to settle the bill with great grace. Shinja's tense body only relaxed after his figure disappeared from the bar entrance. He held Jiuchi's shoulder and frowned slightly. Did he hurt you? No, don't be nervous. Jiuchi glanced at the people around and said softly, there are so many people here. Let's go back to the hotel. When they returned to the hotel, the first thing Shinja did was to wipe Jiuchi's right wrist with a wet towel. Shinju had just touched that place. The man sitting in front of her lowered his eyebrows. Every movement was careful and careful, afraid of hurting her. She suddenly felt very guilty and whispered, I'm sorry, Aja. He was too fast just now and I didn't have time to avoid it. Shinja paused and looked up at her. There was no reproach on his handsome face and his gaze was very gentle. It's too dirty to be scratched by that kind of person. As if afraid that she would misunderstand, he hesitated and said, he has many women. Who knows if there are any germs on his hands? Jiuchi's gloominess was swept away and she was almost amused by him. Ridiculing Shinju like this was really too ruthless. As expected of her, Shinja. Oh, so cute. I like him more and more. She stared at his handsome face with a burning gaze and a bold thought of kissing him suddenly appeared in her heart. Her heart moved at will. Since she liked him, why should she hide it? She suddenly threw herself into his arms. Because her movements were too fierce, she directly pushed him onto the sofa. She pressed him under her body and wrapped her arms around his neck. Her clear black and white eyes were as bright as the stars in the sky, flickering with an enchanting flame that made people gasp in admiration. Chi. Don't talk. She raised a finger and placed it on his lips. She lowered her head slightly and kissed his forehead. Her soft lips slowly moved downwards like a beautiful butterfly, lightly resting on his thin lips. His Chi for the first time took the initiative. Shinja happily hugged her tightly. Even if she wanted to go back on her words, it was already too late. He took the initiative and his wet and hot tongue drilled into her mouth, extremely gentle. After a while, she laid on his chest and her slightly swollen red lips rubbed against his cheek. She whispered in his ear, Aja, I love you so much. This was the first time she had said those words seriously. Shinja's heart melted. He suddenly understood why it was said in the books that couples like to say those words to each other. It was because it was a wonderful feeling. It was as if he suddenly had the whole world and his heart was filled with joy. He didn't care about the prosperity of the world and only wanted to be with her until the end of time. He hugged her tightly as if he wanted to rub her into his body and never separate again. He kissed her hair and she obediently laid in his arms. The atmosphere was so warm and sweet. She really wanted to stay like this forever, hugging each other. Unfortunately, that was not realistic. Shenja suddenly heard a strange gulu-gulu sound. He could not help but laugh. He kissed her forehead and said dotingly, "Are you hungry? What do you want to eat?" Jiyuchi's cheeks flushed red. She pouted and said, "Don't laugh at me. I haven't eaten Japanese food in a long time. How about we eat Japanese food?" It was pointless to ask this question. As long as she liked it, Shinja would never reject it. After asking the hotel staff about the nearest Japanese restaurant, Shinja drove her out. Jiyuchi sneaked a glance at Shinja, who was driving seriously. Her fingers scratched the seat. She had many questions in her heart. She really wanted to ask, but she was worried that it would bring back sad memories. She was really conflicted. Shinja had already noticed her little movements. He helplessly raised the corner of his lips and said gently, "Is there anything you want to ask?" Jiyuchi's eyes lit up. "Can I?" Shinja smiled dotingly. "There's no need for secrets between us. Ask whatever you want." She asked carefully, "Ajay, can you tell me who Aisha is?" She noticed that when she asked this question, Shinja's hands tightened on the steering wheel. The atmosphere suddenly froze. She was very uneasy and thought that she had stepped on a minefield. She hurriedly said, "It's okay. It's okay if you don't want to tell me. I'm just a little curious. I won't think too much, really." Ouch. She felt like slapping herself. Wasn't this just giving herself away? She laughed dryly. She was so annoyed that she did not dare to look at him. He would definitely think that she was a petty woman. "Chi-chi, Jiyuchi responded in a muffled voice. She turned her head out of the car window and did not look at him. She was angry at her own clumsiness. There was a hint of helplessness and a hint of heaviness in his tone. "It's not that I don't want to tell you. I'm just thinking about how to say it." Jiyuchi turned around and looked at him in a daze. He reached out and stroked her hair comfortingly. He quickly retracted his hand and looked ahead. It was as if he was looking back through the sky outside the car window. He slowly said, "Before I turned 18, I lived in the Shin family. At that time, only 3 people were good to me. One was Uncle Lin, the other was the driver, Uncle Zhao, and the last one was Uncle Zhao's daughter, Aisha. Aisha was 2 years younger than me. She was very lively and liked to play with me. At that time, I hated women. I didn't even treat Aisha well. However, she didn't give up and kept calling me brother behind my back." At this point, he pursed his lips and looked terrible. Later, I don't know where Shinyu heard the rumors that Aisha liked me. He started to pursue Aisha, causing her to distance herself from me. After half a year, he finally got her. Not long after, I went abroad. Later, I heard that Aisha had aborted a child because of him. Of course, he couldn't marry her. Shinja gripped the steering wheel tightly. His knuckles were slightly white and his face was frighteningly cold. He slowly told the story. In the end, Aisha slit her wrist and committed suicide. Before she died, she gave me a call. She said, "Brother Shinja, Shinyu has never loved me. He pursued me because he wanted to take away what belonged to you." His eyes were cold and fierce. He said word by word, "Since we were young, he liked to take away my things. I don't care about other things, but Aisha is innocent. So I hate him." Jiyuchi had long known that Shinyu's character was bad, but she didn't know it was bad to this extent. She cursed Shinyu in her heart for being shameless. She felt vexed and said guiltily, "I'm sorry, Aja. I didn't expect things to be like this." If she had known, she would never have asked. Because of her curiosity, she brought up Shinja's sad story. She felt that she was too much. The past is the past. I've already let it go. Why do you have to take it to heart? Shinja caressed her cheek and said gently, "I know what you're worried about, Chi-Chi. In my life, you're the only woman. There was no one else in the past and there won't be anyone else in the future. Aisha was just a little sister to me. I have to bear some responsibility for her death. I feel sorry for her, but I don't love her. Do you understand?" Welfare Xingwu 799. Chapter 901. His heartfelt words made Jiyuchi both moved and embarrassed. Her clear black and white eyes stared at him. "Ajay, you are also my one and only. In the future, I will never let my imagination run wild again." "Good girl." Just then the car arrived at the destination. Shinja stopped the car by the roadside, leaned close to her, kissed the corner of her lips, and then took her into his arms. His fingers tightened around her and his voice was calm. Xinyu is very dangerous. No matter what method he uses to get close to you, don't believe him. I know. I originally wanted to get some information from him today, so I agreed to have tea with him. In the future, I will definitely stay as far away from him as possible. Xinyu was a proud and arrogant person who always looked down on women. So just now, she deliberately showed a very stupid look, making him completely uninterested. That way he would not care about her. Xinjia rubbed her hair in appreciation. That's right. In the future, stay away from him. If he comes close to you again, tell me immediately. I will help you beat him up. Xinyu, who was despised by the two of them, was currently in the hotel with Anna. Of course, Anna was not his secretary but one of his lovers. After a while, Anna coquettishly leaned into Xinyu's embrace, her fingertips drawing circles on his chest. She acted coquettishly. Darling, have you taken a fancy to that woman? Which woman? Xinyu's eyes were cold and his cold handsome face was dyed with a stern look. Unfortunately, Anna did not sense the danger at all and said to herself, it's the woman I met at the entrance of the bar. Although she looks passable, her figure is too bad, like a washboard. She rattled on and on about Jiuqi's shortcomings. Xinyu's face grew darker and darker, almost as dark as the bottom of a pot. He abruptly pushed her away and got off the ground. He tied the towel around his waist and coldly said, go back to your country immediately and never appear in front of me again. Anna was startled. She did not care that she was not wearing anything and immediately jumped down to hug him tightly. She repeatedly said, I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. I will never ask about those women again. Please don't drive me away. Scram. Xinyu violently pushed her away. She screamed and fell to the ground. Her jade body was sprawled across the ground, giving her a different kind of charm. But Xinyu only coldly swept a glance at her and curled his lips in ridicule. To him, women were only used to vent his lust. He would allow smart women to stay by his side for a while longer. As for stupid women, of course he would throw them away as soon as possible. He pulled out his arm mercilessly, and his eyes were like a venomous snake's. Don't make me say it again. Get back to your country right now. Anna was shocked by his fierce eyes. She was just a small actress who wanted to use Xinyu to climb up the ranks. She didn't expect to be dumped by him after only being with him for half a month. How could she be reconciled? She covered her face and cried. Her mouth kept saying things like, I love you so much, don't abandon me. Xinyu sneered and nodded. Good, very good, you don't have to leave. Anna was secretly delighted and cried even harder. She played the role of a woman who was deeply in love with someone who was tortured. Xinyu looked at her with disdain and turned to walk into the living room. Soon Anna heard him talking on the phone. 13, come to my room. 13 was a tall man wearing a black suit. His face was like a poker card, without the slightest expression. He respectfully bowed to Xinyu. Mister, what are your orders? Xinyu raised his chin in Anna's direction and lightly said, that woman is yours. You can do whatever you want with her. 13's calm eyes immediately lit up. He was like a ferocious wolf that had caught its prey. A dangerous aura came from him as he walked towards Anna with steady steps. Anna was stunned. She even forgot to cry. She uneasily retreated and shook her head in panic. No, no, Mr. Shen, I'm willing to return to my country. I'll return to my country immediately. Xinyu turned his head and revealed a nasty smile. Unfortunately, it's too late. No, Mr. Shen, I beg you, let me go. It's my fault. I'll leave immediately and never appear in front of you again. Anna, whose wrist was being held by 13, screamed out in pain. Xinyu frowned in disgust. 13, gag her mouth and take her away immediately. Yes. 13 responded and fiercely hit Anna on the back of her neck. She softly collapsed in his arms. He picked her up horizontally and quickly disappeared through the door. 13 had a tyrannical tendency and was very good at playing with women. He once played with the daughter of a triad leader to death. He was chased everywhere. It was Xinyu who saved him. In order to repay Xinyu, he became his personal bodyguard. Although 13 had restrained himself in recent years, his methods were still very cruel. Even if Anna wasn't killed by him, a layer of skin would be peeled off. This was the consequence of disobeying Xinyu. He expressionlessly glanced at the messy bedroom and walked into the bathroom bare-chested. In the afternoon it was already night in China. The big screen hanging on the wall was connected and projected Xin Jinhao's figure. His face was very similar to Xinyu's. He frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, "Ah, you're too mischievous. How can you take a vacation just like that? A lot of people in the company are watching you. Shen Yu's upper body was naked and a towel was wrapped around his waist. He leaned against the back of the chair and wiped his hair with a towel in his hand. He lazily said, "Dad, I'm not joking. Do you know why I chose Hawaii? It's because my good brother is here." He deliberately dragged out the words, "good brother." Sure enough, he saw Shin Jinhao's face change color. Humph, didn't that bastard say he was discussing business abroad? Why did he run to Hawaii? Shin Yu sneered, "What business? The business was settled 2 days ago. He's using the business as an excuse to go on a date with a woman." Shin Jinhao frowned. "Is it that little girl from the Ji family?" "Yes, her name is Jiyuchi, the most precious daughter of the CEO of the Ji Group. I can see that Shinja likes her very much." A sharp light flashed in Shin Yu's eyes and his lips curled into an evil smile. "Dad, what do you think if I steal his precious woman?" Shin Jinhao was very satisfied with his second son. The only thing he didn't like was that his private life was too messy. Fortunately, it wasn't a big problem and he never interfered. However, when his second son interfered in Shinja's relationship, he still had some concerns. He disagreed. "Since you know that he treasures that woman very much, why do you deliberately provoke him? He's not that weak youth who has nothing." Shin Jinhao thought about how after Shinja returned to China, he quickly implemented several new policies and replaced a large number of middle and high-level management in the Shin group. He and Ayu were exhausted and had a headache. Shin Yu touched his cheek where Shinja had punched him and sneered, "It's because of this that I want to step on his sore spot." He still clearly remembered how sad Shinja was when he found out about Isha's death. Even if Shinja armed himself with indifference, the memory of his heavy punch on the tombstone and the bleeding back of his hand was still fresh in Shin Yu's mind. Shin Jinhao shook his head and reminded, "Be careful not to step on his sore spot. Instead, he'll cripple your feet." "Dad, in your eyes, am I so useless that I can't compare to that madman?" Even in front of his father, Shin Yu didn't shy away from calling Shinja a madman. In the eyes of everyone in the Shin family, Shinja was a madman. Shinja was in poor health when he was young and often fell ill. Once he fell ill, he was like a different person. No, to be precise, he was like a dangerous beast. He kicked and bit anyone who came close to him. Shinja's appearance was similar to Shin Jinhao's deceased ex-wife. His face always reminded Shin Jinhao of the ugly things he had done in the past. In addition, Tao Shirin always spoke ill of Shinja in his ear. Gradually he began to hate Shinja. It was too late to avoid him, so why would he investigate why Shinja went crazy when he fell ill? It only made him hate Shinja more. Shin Jinhao recalled Shinja's crazy appearance when he was young. His brows were tightly knitted together as he unhappily said, "Don't mention that unfilial son again. Whenever he's mentioned, my heart feels uncomfortable." "Ayu, instead of dealing with a woman, I advise you to focus on the company's affairs." "I know, Dad. I know what I'm doing." "Well, I won't talk to you anymore. It's already very late in the country. You should rest early." After cutting off the conversation, Shin Yu threw his whole body into the soft sofa and threw the towel on the coffee table. His slender fingers tapped on the sofa's armrest. He picked up the phone and dialed a number. He said in fluent English, "Find a few people to help me do something." The night on the island was very charming. The bright lights shrouded the sapphire-like sea. The bars on the coast were colorful and lively. Although Shin Yu's purpose was unknown, it did not affect Jiyuchi's mood of vacation. She and Shinja interlocked their fingers and happily strolled on the beach. They danced with the enthusiastic locals and their laughter flew in the night. Just as they were returning to the hotel and passing by a bar, 6 or 7 foreign men dressed like hooligans rushed out of the hotel and blocked their way. Among the group, 2 people pointed at each other's noses and cursed. Some of the other people were watching a good show and some tried to persuade them to stop. However, the 2 people who were cursing at each other seemed to be angry. Not only did they not stop cursing, but it escalated to a fight of fists and feet. The scene was instantly chaotic. The people on both sides were in a melee. They took out their weapons one after another. Daggers, electric batons, and even beer bottles were taken out. They were fighting fiercely. Shinja was worried about being affected. He hugged Jiyuchi's waist tightly and planned to pass by. At this moment, someone in the group of people who were fighting suddenly shouted in English, "Stop fighting. Isn't it just for a woman? Everyone look, there's a beautiful Asian girl over there." Beauty novel Songshu 566. Chapter 902. As soon as these words came out, the people fighting stopped and turned their eyes to Jiuqi. Although Shunja blocked her and they couldn't see her face, her graceful figure was enough to make men daydream. Someone immediately echoed, "Don't let that chick run away. You Asian man, put that chick down and I'll spare your life." A burly man holding a dagger raised his chin and stared at Shunja in disdain. Shunja didn't want to meddle in other people's business, but he didn't expect trouble to come knocking on his door. He coldly glanced at those people and spat out a word, "Get lost. F***CK, I'm going to get that chick today." The man roughly spat and waved his dagger as he pounced forward. Shunja protected Jiuqi and took a step back. He stretched out his long leg and kicked the man away. Another two men pounced forward. They didn't see how Shunja made his move and the two men flew out one after another. A bearded man quietly came from behind, intending to grab Jiuqi to threaten Shunja. Unexpectedly, Shunja's eyes were like torches and had already seen through his trick. He said with a calm face, "Chi-Chi, lower your head." Jiuqi quickly lowered her head. Shunja's fist brushed past her head and hit the bearded man's chin. Jiuqi clearly heard the sound of bones breaking. The bearded man held his chin and screamed in pain. The others weren't any better. They were all injured and lying on the floor, groaning and groaning. A man among the wounded quietly took out a silencer and aimed it at Shunja's head. Jiuqi followed Shunja and walked for a distance. She inadvertently looked back and saw the black muzzle of a gun. The blood in her body suddenly turned cold. "Be careful." Her voice became sharp because of the urgency. At the same time, she shook off Shunja's arm and blocked his back as fast as she could. Bang! A gunshot sounded. Shunja's heart almost stopped. He quickly turned around and held Jiuqi in his arms, exposing his entire back to the killer's shooting range. He didn't care about his own safety. His body slightly trembled from fear and his eyes were filled with panic. He anxiously called out, "Chi-Chi? I'm fine, don't worry." Jiuqi's heart was filled with fear. At that moment she really thought she was dead. She didn't expect that before the killer could pull the trigger, a bullet would shoot out of nowhere and hit the killer's forehead. Someone's dead. Run. The group of injured people lying on the ground got up in a hurry and scattered as fast as they could. Soon only a corpse was left behind. It was the man who wanted to assassinate Shunja. He was lying on the ground with a hole in his forehead. Blood was gurgling out of the hole. He was still holding a pistol in his hand. His eyes that had lost their luster were staring straight at Shunja's direction. A man in a black trench coat walked out of the alley majestically. He was tall and straight and his face was cold and indifferent. He said in a deep voice, "Young master, Ah Ling has already chased after those who escaped. Maybe we can get some information from them." Shunja nodded slightly. "Aze, your marksmanship is not bad. Thank you for just now." If Aze hadn't hidden in the surroundings to protect him and Yuchi, he would have shot the killer and Yuchi would have been injured. If that had happened, he would never be able to forgive himself. Aze had followed Shunja for so many years, but this was the first time he heard the words "thank you" from him. His lips curved stiffly. One look and one could tell that he wasn't used to smiling. The tips of his ears were tinged with a faint shade of red. He coughed and said, "This is what I should do. Young master, you don't have to be so polite." After Aze appeared, Jiuchi withdrew from Shunja's arms. However, he insisted on holding her hand. She smiled sincerely. "Aze, I also want to thank you. If it wasn't for your godly marksmanship, I probably wouldn't be able to stand and talk to you." Aze's ears turned even redder. His eyes flickered. "Miss Ji is too polite. If the two of you don't have any orders, I'd better hide in the dark." On the balcony of the hotel, a man in a shirt and trousers stood in the night sky. He held a pair of binoculars in his hand and took in the fighting on the street. He snorted coldly. "Wilson's men are really useless. 7 of them can't even defeat a lunatic." Behind him stood the cold-faced bodyguard, 13. "Second, young master, if you want to take Shunja's life, why don't you let me do it?" 13 was very confident in his skills. He was one of the top assassins in Asia. Shinyu tossed the binoculars to him and said calmly, "I don't want to take his life now. I asked Wilson to find those good-for-nothings to play the hero saving the damsel in distress. Unfortunately, the people Wilson found were too useless. They were all killed in seconds by Shunja before it was my turn. If the plan succeeded, Jiuchi would see the man she liked being beaten down by others. She was about to be humiliated. At this time, Shinyu descended from the sky and saved her like a god. How could she not be moved by him? Shinyu's lips curled up in ridicule. Those foolish and ignorant women, Chasing after love was only because the other party could satisfy their vanity and satisfy their dreams of becoming a hero. They liked powerful men. Where was there any true love? Just as Xinyu sneered at women, Xinzhi and Jiuqi had already returned to the hotel. The eldest young master, who had been holding back for a long time, finally exploded. He let go of Jiuqi's hand with a cold face and left her alone. He opened the door without a word. Jiuqi was like a wronged little wife, pitifully following behind him. When he walked to the bedroom, she followed. When he went to the cloakroom to get a bathrobe, she followed. When he went into the bathroom, she also wanted to follow. The eldest young master blocked her at the door with a cold face. He exuded an air of, "I'm very unhappy," and said coldly, "Why are you following me?" The eldest young master, who was throwing a tantrum, was finally willing to talk to her. Jiuqi was so touched that tears streamed down her face. She quickly reached out and grabbed his sleeve. She pouted pitifully and said softly, "Aja, don't be angry. I was wrong. Don't ignore me." The little woman in front of him stared at him with her big watery eyes. Her red lips were pouted, and her expression was pitiful. Xinzhi's heart softened. However, when he thought of the dangerous situation just now, his expression became uglier. He said coldly, "You still know that you were wrong. Tell me, what did you do wrong?" Jiuqi blinked her big eyes and said softly, "I shouldn't have stood in front of you when you were in danger." Xinzhi's face was still stiff. He said in a deep voice, "You know that you were wrong? You're not allowed to do such dangerous things in the future. No matter when, as long as you're in danger, all you have to do is protect yourself. Do you hear me?" This was the first time he had spoken to her in such a strict tone. She didn't feel sad or angry, but she felt her heart ache. She clearly knew that when he had hugged her, his body had trembled slightly. That was the fear of losing her. She was also afraid of losing him, so how could she only care about protecting herself when he was in danger? Even though he didn't get the answer he wanted, Xinzhi didn't give up. He stubbornly stared into her eyes, as if he wanted to see through her organs and intimidate her soul. He was in a deadlock with her at the bathroom door just for an answer, or rather, a promise. Jiuqi bit her lips and suddenly threw herself into his arms. She leaned her head against his chest and said slowly, "Aja, if you're in danger, I can't turn a blind eye to it." Xinzhi's body stiffened. Just as he was about to say something, she raised her head and covered his mouth with her hand. She continued, "Don't be anxious. Let me finish. Aja, I want to face the danger with you. I want to stand by your side. I don't want to be a naive little girl who is well protected by you. However, I promise that I won't be so rash again. Aja, I'm done. If you're still angry, you can scold me." Her clear eyes were filled with uneasiness. She was like a child who had done something wrong and was waiting for her parents to criticize her. His feelings were very complicated. He had always known that she was different from ordinary people. He could tolerate and give her the greatest freedom in other things, but when it came to her personal safety, he couldn't easily compromise. He was silent for a moment and slowly pushed her away from his arms. He said, "I can't agree. I'm a man. I don't need my woman to protect me from danger." She tugged at his sleeve. "Aja, get out. I'm going to take a shower." He pulled his sleeve out of her hand and stroked her hair. His tone was very gentle and his expression could be said to be gentle, but she just felt that he was angry. The sound of water splashing could be heard from the bathroom. Jiuqi was a little frustrated as she rolled around on the bed. What was wrong with her wanting to protect the person she loved? But he wasn't wrong either. He also wanted to protect her, so whose fault was it? Jiuqi lay on her side facing the window. Before she knew it, the corners of her eyes were wet. She hurriedly wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and laughed self-deprecatingly. Xinzhi really spoiled her rotten. She actually started to cry like a delicate girl. This was a bad habit. She had to change it. However, she didn't expect that Xinzhi had already seen her wiping her tears. Xinzhi stood at the head of the bed. Because of his height, even though Jiuqi's back was facing him, he could still see her secretly wiping her tears. His heart felt like it was being pricked by needles. It was so uncomfortable that it was about to explode. He clenched his fingers and gripped the towel in his hand tightly. His expression was as cold as an iceberg. Back then, when she said, "Xinzhi, let's be together," he felt that the whole world was bright. He only had one thought in his heart, which was to love her and treat her well. He couldn't let her cry anymore. But now he still made her cry. Awesome novel. Songshu 566. Chapter 903. Jiuqi suddenly felt a warmth on her back. She was pressed tightly against a warm body. A pair of arms wrapped around her waist and hugged her tightly. She was afraid that he would discover that she had cried, so she rubbed her eyes to make sure that everything was normal. Then she said gently, "Aja, you're done bathing?" He didn't make a sound and hugged her tightly. His chest was pressed against her back and there was no space between them. He buried his head in her hair and breathed softly. She placed her hand on the back of his hand and said softly, "Aja." "I'm sorry, Chichi." He finally spoke. His voice was low and hoarse and every word was said very seriously. "When you stood in front of me and faced the gun, you must have been very scared. I was still so fierce to you. I'm sorry." The eyes that had just shed tears seemed to tear up again very easily. Jiuqi sniffed. Shinja must have done it on purpose to make her cry again. How could he be so good to her? It was over. She really wanted to cry again. She didn't cry again. Instead, she turned around and lifted her chin. She pressed her cool lips against his and used the tip of her tongue to gently trace the shape of his lips. She kissed him very seriously and he was also intoxicated in this easy kiss. It wasn't until their breathing became unstable that they slowly separated. She leaned against his ear and said softly, "Aja, you don't have to say sorry. We didn't do anything wrong." They didn't do anything wrong. They just loved each other too much. Since they loved each other so much, why should they care about such small things? Jiuqi hated Shinyu very much, especially when he suddenly appeared when she and Shinja were happily enjoying lunch. Moreover, he sat at their table as if they were familiar with each other. It was really annoying. "Big brother Yuchi, what a coincidence. You're also here to eat." Shinyu didn't seem to see that Shinja and Chichi didn't welcome him. After sitting down, he even used a very familiar tone to chat with them. "Oh, I can't stand it." Jiuqi couldn't help but ridicule in her heart. Then she raised her head and looked at Shinja. Seeing that Shinja was still helping her peel the prawn shell very seriously and didn't intend to pay attention to Shinyu, she calmed down, lowered her eyelashes and continued to eat the prawn meat on the plate. The smile on Shinyu's face stiffened. The two people sitting opposite him, one was seriously peeling the prawn shell, and the other was seriously eating the prawn meat. Both of them ignored him. He was the dignified second young master of the Chen family. When had he ever been thrown in the face like this? He gritted his teeth and put on a fake smile. "Big brother, when do you plan to return to China? The company can't do without you." Shinja glanced at him and said coldly, "Compared to a vice president like me, the company is even more inseparable from the president." "Aja, well done." Jiuqi almost couldn't help but laugh out loud. Her shoulders shook suspiciously a few times. The smile on Shinyu's face froze. In his mind, he imagined using a dagger to stab Shinja until he was drenched in blood. He raised an eyebrow and turned his gaze to Jiuqi. He said warmly, "Yuchi, I heard that you haven't graduated from university yet. What do you want to do after graduation? Do you want to come to the Shin group to train?" Jiuqi really didn't want to pay attention to him, but he was all smiles and it seemed impolite to ignore him. Thus, she raised her head and revealed a polite smile. "No need, thank you, President Shin." "Alright, do you eat prawns?" After saying that, she directly grabbed an unpeeled prawn and handed it to him. She smiled and said, "Try it. The spicy prawns here are very delicious." Shinyu looked at the red prawn in front of him, which was tightly held in her hand. His whole person was not good. The corner of his mouth twitched as he said, "No need, thank you. Don't be polite. Try it. It's very delicious." Jiuqi's hand stretched forward again. The prawn almost touched his nose. The smile on her face was very sincere, but the little devil in her heart was laughing evilly. "Eat it, eat it. When you finish the first bite, I'll tell you that I actually didn't wash my hands after going to the toilet." Most rich young masters were a little misophobic. She didn't believe that she couldn't disgust Shinyu. Unfortunately, Shinyu didn't do as she wished. He regretfully shook his head and said, "Thank you for your kindness, but I'm allergic to seafood." Jiuqi's eyes moved slightly. She put the prawn back on the plate and smiled faintly. "So you're allergic to seafood? What a pity." Shinyu's lips curved slightly. Just as he was about to say something, Shinja's frosty gaze turned to him. "That group of people last night, it was you who arranged it, right?" It wasn't a question but a statement. Shinyu's eyes darkened, but he still smiled faintly. "Big brother, what do you mean by that? You don't have to play dumb. What you did is done. In front of so many people, I won't do anything to you." Shinja put the peeled prawn on the plate in front of Jiuqi. He slowly wiped his fingers with a wet towel. His movements were extremely elegant. When he said this, he didn't look at Shinyu. He just seriously did his own thing as if Xinyu didn't exist. Xinyu hated this attitude of his the most. No matter if he got his father's praise, took away the things he liked, or got the position of CEO, or even took away all his glory and drove him out of the Shin family, he always had an indifferent expression. He wouldn't look at him more than once, as if nothing could affect his mood. After so many years he was still like this, treating him like nothing. Xinyu was very angry, but he had already learned to control his emotions. He smiled faintly and said, "You're talking about you and Yuchi being blocked by drunkards last night? That matter really has nothing to do with me. Big brother, no matter what, we're brothers. How could I do such a thing? That kind of thing you've done a lot in the past." Shinja's voice was calm. As he spoke, he leaned closer to Yuchi and wiped the oil stains on her lips with a tissue. When he first came back from the United States, he was assassinated by the killers sent by Xinyu. After he was injured, he met Yuchi in the small forest. Thinking of the first time they met, Shinja couldn't help but smile. He also rubbed Yuchi's cheek with his finger. Shinyu's face was very ugly. He wanted to flip the table and go berserk. Shinja, that lunatic, if he wanted to talk, then he should seriously look at him and talk. Why did he keep showing affection in front of him? Showing affection was a very shameful thing to do. If he stayed any longer, he might not be able to control himself. Xinyu made a rational choice. He suddenly stood up and said with a sullen face, "I have something to do. I'll take my leave first. You guys eat slowly." The foodie Yuchi raised her head and smiled innocently. "Take care. I won't send you off. But second young Master Shin, you haven't eaten yet, right? Don't tell me you came to the restaurant to buy soy sauce?" Shinyu's face turned green from her teasing. He said stiffly, "I'm not hungry." "Oh, so it's like that. Goodbye then." Yuchi smiled and waved. It would be best if they never met again. "You seem to be very reluctant to part with him?" The jealous young Master Shin's tone was sour. He peeled another shrimp for her. Yuchi made a face. "No, I'm stabbing him with a dagger in my heart. I've already stabbed him until he's covered in blood." "Oh, well done." Young Master Shin smiled contentedly. He bent down and kissed her on the cheek as a reward. She blushed and looked around guiltily. When she saw that no one was paying attention, she relaxed. She suddenly thought of something and smiled mischievously. "Aja, Xinyu said that he's allergic to seafood. Is that true?" Shinja thought about it seriously. "Maybe it's true." "What do you mean maybe? You've lived under the same roof for so many years. Why don't you know him at all?" Shinja rubbed his chin. "Although we live under the same roof, we rarely eat at the same table. Even when we eat together, we don't pay attention to what he likes to eat. However, it's true that the Shin family's kitchen rarely cooks seafood." "Oh, then the possibility that he's allergic to seafood is quite high." Yuchi's charming eyes were extremely bright. She suddenly leaned in front of him and asked with a mischievous smile, "Does Xinyu like to go to nightclubs?" Shinja nodded. He paused and said, "I think I know what you're going to do. You're so smart. There's a reward for you, dear." Yuchi looked around. When no one was paying attention, she quickly kissed him on the cheek. The oil on her lips smeared all over Shinja's face. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She stuck out her tongue mischievously. As she helped him wipe his face, she said, "He must have hired those people last night. If I don't teach him a lesson, how can I get rid of the hatred in my heart? Aja, you won't stop me, right?" He pinched her nose lovingly. "Do whatever you want. But be careful." Night fell. The busiest bar in Hawaii. Men and women of all colors gathered here. They swayed their waists wildly to the deafening electronic music and danced wildly under the blurred lights. People who were keen on emotional games lurked in the crowd. Once they found a target, they would chase after it. "Hey handsome, are you alone?" A slender and fair hand gently rested on Shinyu's shoulder. It was a very beautiful blonde. She wore a red halter dress that hugged her hips and low cut. She had a pair of emerald cat eyes that made people who looked into her eyes involuntarily sink into them. It was a pity that her aura was too heavy and Xinyu didn't like it. He glanced at her indifferently. "Sorry, I'm not interested." "Well, that's a pity. I hope you have a good night." The blonde left with a regretful expression. Xinyu raised his eyebrows and continued to drink. Suddenly he felt someone bump into his arm. He turned his head unhappily and saw an Asian girl wearing a waiter's uniform. She held a tray in her hand and stood in front of him with a flushed face. She kept bowing and said in heavily accented English, "Sorry, I'm very sorry. I was bumped into by someone just now. That's why I bumped into you. I'm really sorry." When the girl lowered her head, Shinyu just happened to see the beautiful curve of her neck. Her fair skin was as tender and smooth as cream. He could also see the faint ravine on her chest when she bent over. His throat was dry and his body was a little hot. He had never been the kind of man who could control his desires. He reached out and lifted the girl's chin, carefully examining her appearance. Attention Jianghu 799. Chapter 904. She was elegant and beautiful without makeup, and her body exuded a faint fragrance. She could be given 8 points. The girl was shocked by his bold action. Her cheeks became redder and redder like a tomato. She stammered, Sir? Can you let go of me? Her skin was as smooth as he imagined. He didn't let go of her. Instead, he rubbed her chin and asked in Japanese, Are you Japanese? The girl's eyes lit up. She replied in Japanese, Yes, sir. How did you know? Shinyu smiled. When you speak English, you have a Tokyo accent. What's your name? The girl shyly lowered her eyes. My name is Junko. I'm an international student from Tokyo. My English is very poor. I've made a fool of myself. That, sir, can I trouble you to let go of me? We can communicate in Japanese. I've learned Japanese. Shinyu had played with too many sexy girls, but this was the first time he met such a pure girl. His interest was immediately piqued. He reluctantly withdrew his finger and said, Junko, don't call me sir. Call me Ayu. Under his encouraging gaze, Junko stammered out his name. Her cheeks were frighteningly red. Shinyu chuckled. He felt more and more amused. He rested his chin on his finger. His tone was very gentle, but his words were shocking. He said, Junko, I need a girl to accompany me tonight. I think you're not bad. What do you want? Just tell me. Junko's bright eyes widened. She looked at him in disbelief. Her face turned from red to white. She looked as if she had been humiliated. She felt so wrong that tears were about to fall. Mr. Ayu, you're really too much. Although I work in a bar, I'm not that kind of girl. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave. She pursed her red lips and tried her best to hold back her tears. She was like a pear blossom in the rain, making people feel pity for her. It had always been girls who enthusiastically threw themselves at him, begging for his love. He didn't expect that there would be a day when he would be rejected by a girl. Shinyu raised his eyebrows with interest. He smiled faintly and said, How about 2 million for a night? You're really too much. Do you think money can buy everything? Let me tell you, a girl like me is not something you can afford. Junko angrily raised her chin. Her bright eyes were burning with anger. She was like an elegant and refined white lotus. Even if she was in full bloom in the mud, she still stood proudly, elegant, and dazzling. In the corner of the second floor, Jiuchi was nestled in Shinja's arms. Both of them were wearing earphones. Hearing the girl's angry voice, Jiuchi couldn't help but laugh. She laughed so hard that tears almost flowed out. I think this Junko is very interesting. She is Shinai in the Meteor Garden. Although she is poor, she has a noble and tenacious heart. Well, such a girl is most popular with rich young masters. You see, Shinyu will definitely be impressed by her. She smiled very happily, her eyebrows curved into the most beautiful crescent moon shape. Her entire person was radiating with a charming luster, like a rose that bloomed passionately and passionately. Shinja liked this side of her very much, and the corners of his lips curled up as well. He stroked her hair and teased, Why is your little head filled with so many wicked ideas? She smugly knocked on her own head. There are a lot of things in my head. Don't let me down in the future. Otherwise, I will definitely have many ways to make you suffer. Shinja sadly sighed. I have a fierce wife at home. Is it too late for me to regret now? Jiuchi raised her fist and fiercely said, You can try. He laughed in a low voice. I just like my wife. You're so powerful. Well, good boy. She rewarded him with a kiss. While the two of them were enjoying each other's company, the relationship between Chinyu and Junko was very tense. Junko glared at Chinyu angrily. Chinyu realized that she was different from the girls he usually associated with, so he smiled very gentlemanly. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to humiliate you. What I want to say is, I like you very much, Junko. One doesn't hit a smiling person. Since he had apologized, Junko couldn't put on a sour face. She slightly turned her head and softly said, It's okay. I forgive you, Mr. Yu. I should go back to work. Goodbye. Wait a minute. Shinyu grabbed her wrist. When she shyly struggled, he timely released her and smiled. I want to ask you, when are you off work? She opened her eyes in surprise. Is there a problem? It's not convenient for a girl like you to go home after work. I'll send you home. No need. Thank you for your kindness. Junko politely refused. Excuse me, Mr. Yu. I wish you a good night. Her delicate figure shuttled through the crowd like a graceful butterfly, causing ripples in Chen Yu's heart. His gaze followed her from beginning to end, seeing her smile at the guests, seeing her being taken advantage of by the unruly guests. He actually felt a kind of anger, although he couldn't tell where this anger came from. Midnight. Junko got off work. She changed out of her work clothes and wore a white dress. Her hair was tied into a ponytail. It was high at the back of her head, adding a bit of lively vitality. She wore flat shoes and slowly walked out of the bar with a smile on her cheeks. She seemed to have thought of something fun. Shen Yu sat in the driver's seat and looked at her through the window. There was an indescribable feeling of comfort in his heart. When she was only a few steps away from the car, he opened the door and appeared in front of her. There was a gentle smile on his handsome face as he gently called her name. Junko was taken aback and subconsciously took half a step back. Mr. Yu, why haven't you left yet? Catching her vigilant action, Shen Yu's eyes were slightly cold, but his smile was still the same. I'm waiting for you. I said I'll send you home. Thank you for your kindness, but there's really no need. At this time the road is very dangerous. I'm worried about you being alone. Shen Yu paused and said in an apologetic tone, take it as an apology for my rudeness just now. Or, you don't want to forgive me? No, that matter, I didn't take it to heart. You don't have to mind. Then please get in the car. Shen Yu opened the door for her and waited with a smile. Junko had no choice but to politely bow. Then I'll have to trouble you. From a certain point of view, Jiuqi admired Shen Yu. Clearly at the beginning, because of his rudeness, he had left a bad impression in Junko's heart. However, he did not give up. Instead, he changed his strategy and showed the demeanor of a Casanova. With his elegant manners, profound knowledge, humorous and witty conversation, and some thoughtful actions, he approached Junko step by step. Most girls who were treated like this by him would have a good impression of him. Jiuqi shook her head and sighed. Fortunately, Shen Yu was very good at wooing girls. Otherwise, she was really worried that Junko would not be able to continue acting. Thus, in a short half an hour's drive, Shen Yu had used his personal charm to win Junko's favor. When they got out of the car, Junko did not reject his farewell kiss. He was very considerate and kissed her cheek. Seeing the girl's blushing face, he felt a sense of accomplishment. He whispered gently in her ear, Junko, I miss you very much. Can I go to your house for a cup of coffee? Her ears were a sensitive area. Her body suddenly trembled and she almost went limp in his arms. Her voice carried a trace of charm. Really, just a cup of coffee? He solemnly vowed, yes, I like you. I will respect your wishes. She bit her lip and hesitated for a moment. Then, okay. Junko lived in a single apartment. It was clean and tidy and the room was decorated very warmly. The fragrance of a young girl permeated the air. Being here, Chen Yu's entire body relaxed. At the same time, the restless thoughts in his heart became even more active. Looking at the young girl's beautiful face and her skin that was just inches away from his, he really wanted to press her down and fiercely love her. Chen Yu was a veteran in the field of love. Of course, he would not act rashly at this time. He had never liked to force people. He had to make Junko willing. The two hugged the coffee cup and chatted. Junko looked at him more and more gently, mixed with the shyness of her first awakening of love. He smiled, thinking that it was about time. Junko, it's getting late. I should be leaving. You should rest early. Okay, I'll walk you to the door. Junko's eyes revealed her reluctance to part with him, but he didn't point it out. He smiled and followed her to the door. Just as they were about to leave, he suddenly stopped and pulled her into his arms. He bent down and kissed her lips. At first, she was very surprised and allowed him to plunder her gently. Later, she leaned softly in his arms and began to respond to him. The two kissed from the door to the living room and finally to the bedroom. Everything happened so fast that Junko almost did not have time to react before she was pressed under his body. He carefully kissed every inch of her skin. He bit her earlobe and whispered in a low voice, "Can I?" She hesitated for a moment, stretched out her arms and wrapped them around his neck, taking the initiative to kiss his lips. The two people who were full of passion quickly stripped off each other's clothes. When Shen Yu leaned on top of Junko and was about to break through the last layer of defense, Junko suddenly pushed him away and screamed in horror. "Ah, too scary. Ayu, your face, what's wrong with your face? Shinyu was tormented by lust and was at the most difficult moment. After being pushed away by Junko, he was a little unhappy. But when he heard her scream in panic, his heart tightened and he quickly touched his cheek. What's wrong with my face? God, he didn't know if he didn't touch it. But when he touched it, he was shocked. His cheeks were full of rice-sized bumps. He looked around and saw that his arms were also full of red bumps. What's going on? What's going on? His eyes were terrifying. He suddenly grabbed Junko's wrist. Do you have some disease that you passed to me? Hongcha 866. Chapter 905. Junko's beautiful face turned pale and quickly shook her head. Of course not, I am very healthy. Ayu, how can you say that about me? I am too sad. You go, I don't want to see you anymore. She angrily pushed him away, forgetting that she was still naked. When she reacted and wanted to wrap herself with the blanket, Shinyu pressed her down again. His dark eyes were like the sky covered by dark clouds. He coldly said, Before I met you I was all right. How can I suddenly become like this? You can't go, you have to give me an explanation. The goosebumps on his cheeks and body began to itch. Coupled with the unrelieved desire in his abdomen, he was like a fish being roasted on a fire. It was so uncomfortable that he wanted to die. Junko said with tears in her eyes, You are too much. Who knows if you are allergic to something? Now you want to blame it on me? I really regret that I was blind to fall in love with you. Shinyu remained unmoved, still maintaining his coercive posture. Compared to the affectionate look just now, he was like a different person. His slender fingers were stuck on her neck as he coldly said, Allergic? Well, that's funny. I am allergic to seafood. But tonight I didn't touch those things at all. Hurry up and tell me who sent you to approach me. If you don't tell me, I will immediately break your neck. No, don't hurt me. Junko was so scared that her tears fell down. Suddenly she thought of something and her face turned pale. She stammered, I know what's going on. Speak. I beg you, let me go first. You like this? I am scared. Trash. Shinyu coldly snorted and loosened his hand. But he still pressed her down, guarding against her sudden movement. It's like this. She shyly lowered her eyes and whispered, You didn't touch seafood, but I ate seafood before I got off work. Just now we kissed. Maybe my lips and mouth still have some. Shinyu sternly roared, Shut up. His stomach churned. When he thought about kissing her and exchanging saliva with her, he felt so disgusted that he wanted to vomit. Damn it, he really wanted to throw himself into disinfectant and wash himself. The more he looked at Junko, the more he felt disgusted with her. Shinyu's mind was completely dispelled, and even the thing between his legs also softened. He angrily got out of bed and quickly walked into the bathroom. Looking at himself in the mirror, his whole body was covered with red bumps. The most serious one was his face, and it was almost impossible to see his original appearance. He was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. He fiercely punched the mirror, and with a bang, the mirror shattered into a pile of fragments. He turned on the shower and vigorously scrubbed his skin. He wished he could use a knife to cut off that layer of terrible red bumps. When he came out of the bathroom, Junko was gone and the room was in a mess. He coldly snorted and guessed that the woman was afraid of his revenge and must have run away. He was very angry and really wanted to retaliate against her. But since she had escaped, he didn't want to cause any more trouble. He put on his clothes and quickly left this annoying place. When he was picking up his car in the parking lot, he met several people who came back late. When those people saw him, they all screamed in horror as if they had seen a ghost. The blue veins on Shinyu's forehead jumped. If he wasn't afraid of trouble, he really wanted to kill these people and throw them into the sea to feed the sharks. Enduring the itching all over his body, he drove to the hospital as fast as he could. After the doctor examined him, he said, Sir, this is acute hives caused by allergy. Don't worry, I will prescribe you some anti-allergy medicine and you will get better. Sure enough, it was an allergy caused by kissing. Shinyu was about to go crazy because of this ruthless fact. He was lying in the VIP ward with an IV drip on his wrist. In his heart, he tortured Junko again and again. He secretly thought that if he met Junko again, he would not let her go. Junko, who was cursed by him, was wearing a black skull t-shirt and a pair of ripped jeans. Chewing gum in her mouth, she swiped the room card to open the door of a 5-star hotel. She jumped and threw herself on the soft mattress. Rubbing her cheek against the quilt, she muttered with satisfaction, It's so comfortable. I can finally have my beauty sleep. The next day the sun was bright and the fresh and comfortable sea breeze was blowing. On the balcony's recliner, a fair-skinned woman was lazily basking in the sun. She was wearing sunglasses on the bridge of her nose and a Bluetooth headset in her ear. Her tone was brisk as she talked to someone. "Dear, I let you and the boss hear the whole live broadcast last night. How was it? Were you satisfied with my service?" This tone and way of speaking was very unique. It was Blue Snow, Aze's second sister, who was good at role-playing and liked to deceive all kinds of men. Jiuqi and Shen just strolled on the beach, looking at the place where the sea met the sky. Jiuqi laughed softly. "I'm very satisfied, dear. I was just mentioning it. I didn't expect you to really have that kind of allergic medicine. You're really amazing. I love you to death." Blue Snow giggled. "Don't. Be careful that the boss is jealous. Those medicines were actually made by my eldest sister. You may not know, but she likes to tinker with all kinds of strange things. If you meet her in the future, don't touch anything she gives you. Otherwise you'll have a good time. Remember my reminder, dear." Blue Snow and Aze's eldest sister was called Lan Fei. Her name was very lowly, but in fact she was frighteningly mature. She liked to research strange drugs. Whoever dared to offend her would be waiting to be used as a human test subject. One was a devil and the other was a weirdo. Jiuqi thought of Aze's evaluation of Lan Fei, and Blue Snow. 3 black lines slid down her forehead. She smiled and said, "I'll remember, dear. It's been hard on you last night. I'm really sorry to ask you to help me when you're on vacation." "Why are you so polite? You know that I like to do those things. If there's such a good thing in the future, leave it for me." After saying that, she suddenly smirked twice and whispered, "Let me tell you a secret, Qinyu's figure is pretty good. If it wasn't for the fact that I drugged him and made him full of bumps, I would really want to do it with him." "Second sister, you're so bold." "Aha, I'm just teasing you. I'm a pure and good girl. I can kiss and touch, but I can't do it. You know." She really wanted to kneel down to her bold second sister. "Dear, let me tell you a secret. The medicine I made for Shenyu will not only make him allergic, but also make him unable to get hard for a month." Although Jiuqi was a little embarrassed, she still gave her face and laughed. "Really? Your big sister is really amazing. She can actually make that kind of medicine." Blue Snow's tone was regretful. If only Shenyu could not get hard for the rest of his life. In the face of delicious beauties he can only look but not eat. Hee, a man like him who can't leave women will definitely feel like his heart is being twisted by a knife and suffer inhumane torture. If that's the case, aren't you afraid that he'll chase after you? Your true face has been seen by him. What's there to be afraid of? At most, I'll go to Korea for plastic surgery. Anyway, I'm already tired of looking at my own face and want to change it for a new one. Sister Blue Snow, I really admire you. You can live so freely." Blue Snow gave people the feeling that she did as she pleased. As long as it was something she liked, she would do it no matter how dangerous it was. At the same time, no one could force her to do something she didn't like. Blue Snow smiled evilly. "Actually, you can do it too. But if you want to play with men, forget it. Boss is always watching you." She was talking about being free, not playing with men. The 2 women had been chatting for more than 5 minutes, and they even talked about playing with men. Boss was very dissatisfied. He tightened his grip on Jiuqi's waist and leaned closer to her. His cold voice was transmitted to Blue Snow's ear through the phone. "If you dare to lead Yuchi astray again, your leave will be shortened by a week." Blue Snow cried out, "Boss, I'm innocent. I didn't say anything." Seeing that young Master Shin was about to flip out, Jiuchi hurriedly said, "That's it then. Dear, we'll contact each other next time." After hanging up the phone, she rubbed against his chest to please him. "Aja, let's go diving, okay? Don't interact with Blue Snow in the future. She's actually quite good. Boo-hoo, don't pinch my nose." "Okay, I promise I won't talk to her about those unhealthy things in the future." The pair of jade lovers interlocked their fingers and walked further and further away on the beach. The hives on Xinyu's body had stopped itching, but the lumps had not dissipated. He still looked a little scary. He was a person who cared a lot about his reputation. He did not want others to see his ugly appearance, so he locked himself in the hospital ward to recuperate and did not go anywhere. According to the original plan, he had to return to China tomorrow. He had no choice but to postpone his trip by 2 days. Just as he finished his call to inform 13 to change his schedule, his assistant in China suddenly called. "Mr. Shin, there's a rumor that Wang Fuhai is planning to sell his shares privately, and he's in contact with our rival, Zhongxin Technology Company. The chairman wants you to return to China immediately and negotiate with Wang Fuhai to buy his shares first. Shin Yu frowned. Where's the chairman? The chairman left for Southeast Asia yesterday for an inspection. He didn't have time to call you because he was pressed for time. Shin Yu frowned even more. Okay, I got it. I'll rush back today. Get someone to keep an eye on Wang Fuhai. No matter what method you use, you must stall for time until I return. Although Shin Yu cared a lot about his reputation, the shares of the Shin Group were more important. He and Shin Jianhao only held 40% of the shares in total. In addition to the 10% that Shin Zhe inherited from his mother, the shares held by the Shin family had an absolute advantage in the board of directors. Otherwise, it would have been difficult for Shin Jianhao to take the position of chairman. Come and see. Xinwu 799. Chapter 906. This was also the reason why Shin Zhe was able to restrain Shin Jianhao and his son. If Wang Fuhai's 10% shares could be obtained by Shin Yu, then the father and son would no longer have to worry about Shin Zhe. Shin Yu made a prompt decision and immediately contacted 13 to change his ticket to the afternoon flight. As for Shin Zhe, he also received a call from the country. After ending the call, the corner of his lips raised into a mysterious smile, and he rubbed Jiuqi's hair. Didn't you want to see Shin Yu's appearance full of bumps? I'll take you to see it in the afternoon, how about it? Go to the hospital? What if he asks how we know he's sick? How are we going to answer? Not to the hospital, to the airport. He's going back to China this afternoon. Jiuqi blinked, thought for a moment and said, then let's go back to China and take the same flight as him. Let's anger him to death. Shin Zhe couldn't help but laugh. Alright, how did you know he was going back to China this afternoon? Jiuqi's face was full of admiration. Their family's Shin Zhe was almost like a living immortal. A shareholder of the board of directors intends to sell his shares privately. When the news reached the ears of Shin Jianhao and his son, they will definitely not let go of such a good opportunity. Shin Jianhao just went to Southeast Asia on a business trip, so Shin Yu can only come forward to negotiate with the shareholder, so I guess Shin Yu will definitely take the afternoon flight back home. So that's how it is. Then you should hurry back and talk to that shareholder. It's best if you buy the shares in your hands. Shin Zhe gently kissed her forehead and said softly, there's no hurry. That 10% of shares will fall into my hands sooner or later. I've already made the arrangements. Zhe, you're amazing. Jiuqi hugged his neck and praised him, her eyes filled with worship. This caused Shin Zhe's pride to rapidly swell. He hugged her very tightly. For their future, he would become even more powerful and take back those things that belonged to him. Airport VIP Lounge. There were a few passengers sitting in 2s and 3s waiting to board the plane. One of them was very eye-catching. He was wearing a long-sleeved shirt and black trousers. The buttons on his neck were all buttoned up to the first one. He was wearing sunglasses that covered half of his face and a white mask, covering himself very tightly. This person was Shin Yu. He was indifferent to the surrounding gazes, seriously looking at the tablet. On the tablet, there were electronic documents sent to him by his assistant that he needed to review. A beautiful stewardess accompanied by 2 security personnel walked to Shin Yu's side. She politely bowed and said, I'm sorry sir, please show us your ID, we want to verify your identity. Shin Yu impatiently, he looked to the people in front of him. He frowned and said, what's going on? Didn't you already show us your ID before entering the lounge? The stewardess smiled politely. I'm sorry if I caused you any trouble. He turned to look to 13 to look and to turn. And 13 nodded. After you to confirm? To confirm you to 2s to confirm you to verify to 2s to check. You to verify to check to verify to confirms to verify. Confirm? To verify to the end you use stu of them. Of to verify to verify to verify to verify stu verify to verify to. To you to check. Use to his stus to stu stuli while speaking. His whole body emitted a cold and domineering aura. The stewardess calmly smiled and said, I'm sorry but in order to avoid unnecessary trouble, I can't tell you the reason. If you don't want to cooperate, please come with us. Shin Yu had never been insulted like this before. He immediately became furious and snapped, Are you trying to imprison me illegally? You misunderstood, sir. I just want to ask you to come to the examination room for our inspection. Shin Yu suddenly stood up. His sharp eyes stared at the stewardess and coldly said, Your practice has violated my rights. Before you tell me the reason for the inspection, I have the right to refuse to cooperate with you. 13. Immediately contact my lawyer. I want to talk to the local tourism bureau directly. Their dispute has attracted the attention of everyone in the lounge. Everyone turned their attention to them. The stewardess' smile was somewhat stiff. She awkwardly said, "Sir, as long as you come with me to the examination room, I will tell you the reason." Xinyu slightly raised his chin. His whole body emitted an arrogant aura. He lightly said, "Before I get the reason, I will not cooperate with you." The stewardess hesitated for a few seconds and helplessly said, "Well, I can tell you. The airport received a report that terrorists have sneaked into the airport and are preparing to board the plane to China. So we have to check the suspicious passengers again." In order to avoid causing panic among the other passengers, they could not reveal the reason before the inspection. However, encountering a difficult passenger like Xinyu, she had no other choice. As soon as her voice fell, Xinyu angrily questioned, "You actually think I'm suspicious?" If there was no mask covering his face, the stewardess would have been able to see Xinyu's ashen face. The stewardess apologized, "I'm sorry." The surrounding people silently agreed. That man was fully armed and had a fierce bodyguard by his side. He indeed looked suspicious. A Chinese old lady muttered, "Young man, I think you should take off your mask and glasses. If you're not a terrorist, they won't do anything to you." Most of the people sitting here were Chinese. Everyone agreed. "That's right, friend. Let the stewardess check it out. It's not like anything will happen. We're about to board the plane. Don't waste the airport staff's time. Let them quickly find the terrorists. Otherwise, when we get on the plane, we won't feel at ease. This is a matter of life and death." That's right, that's right. As everyone chimed in, the airport's boarding announcement rang. "Passengers heading to Beijing, China, please note, your flight CA-838 is now boarding. Please bring your belongings, show your boarding pass, and board the plane from Gate 3. I wish you a pleasant journey." "Thank you." It's already boarding. What should we do? Since there are terrorists, should we postpone the flight?" The surrounding passengers discussed in low voices. From time to time, they would look at Xinyu as if blaming him for wasting the airport staff's time. Of course, Xinyu would not put them in his eyes. However, he was in a hurry to return home. If he missed this flight, he would have to wait for several hours. Moreover, he would have to transfer from other areas. It would be too troublesome, so he had no choice but to cooperate with the stewardess. With a cold face, he followed the stewardess to the security inspection room. With a tough attitude, Xinyu drove away the rest of the people, leaving only the stewardess and a security guard. When he took off his sunglasses and mask, the stewardess and the security guard were surprised. He expressionlessly said, "My skin is allergic. I was worried about scaring others, so I covered it up. If you misunderstood me as a terrorist, I would like to express my indignation at your actions." The stewardess apologetically bowed, "I'm really sorry." After confirming his identity, he was finally allowed to board the plane. This was the worst trip that Xinyu had ever experienced, bar none. His mood was terrible. With a belly full of anger, he came to his seat under the stewardess's guidance. The next second, seeing the two people sitting in the back row, Xinyu had the urge to immediately jump off the plane. Jiuqi waved at Xinyu and said with a smile, "Hi, second young master Xin, we meet again. My god, in such a hot weather, why are you wearing sunglasses and a mask? I almost didn't recognize you." The sunglasses covered the burning anger in Xinyu's eyes, but it also couldn't cover his clenched fists. Jiuqi smiled even more happily, "I didn't expect that we would sit on the same plane. It's really fate. Don't you think so, second brother?" "Second brother? Damn, what kind of a dress is this? This woman, what should I do if I want to kick her off the plane?" Xinyu snorted with a fake smile, "Yes, it's really a coincidence." His whole body exuded a dark aura of, "I'm very unhappy." Jiuqi, who was lucky enough to witness him being taken away by the stewardess and the security guard, wanted to laugh out loud. She simply admired Xinjia. He actually thought of such a wicked way to anonymously call the airport and report that he saw a terrorist sneaking into the airport. In this way, Xinyu, who was wrapped up tightly, became the #1 suspect. That was why there was such an embarrassing scene in the lounge. Although Xinjia's actions were suspected of disrupting the order of the airport, a strange combination of factors led to the discovery of a terrorist when the airport security guard was investigating the suspicious passengers. That terrorist sewed a plastic bomb to the crotch of his NEI pants. After detonating, it was enough to blow up a plane. After the terrorist was arrested, the airport staff and the passengers who knew about it all broke out in cold sweat. They were silently grateful to the person who reported it in their hearts. As for Xinzhi and Jiyuqi, they had no idea that the terrorist was really found. After more than 10 hours of flight, they boarded Xinzhi's private plane at the capital international airport and flew to Ying City. The next day at 10 o'clock in the morning, the plane landed at Ying City Airport. Liang Yu had been waiting outside the airport for a long time. When he finally saw his boss and his future wife walking out side by side, he quickly went forward to welcome them. Eldest young master Miss Ji, you must have had a hard journey. The car is ready. Xinzhi nodded. He held Jiyuqi's hand and followed Liang Yu to the car park. After getting in the car, he ordered Liang Yuan, who was driving in front, send us to the Ji family first. Jiyuqi held his hand and smiled. If you're busy, let Liang Yuan send you to the company first. I'll go back alone later. Xinzhi held her hand tightly. I'm not busy. I'll send you. Liang Yu really wanted to find a ball of cotton to plug his ears. That way he wouldn't be conflicted about whether or not to remind his boss. Xinyu had also arrived in Ying City and was rushing to Wang Fuhai's residence. Beauty novel Song Shu 566. Chapter 907. In the end, he mustered up his courage and interrupted the warm and beautiful atmosphere in the car. Eldest young master, Xinyu arrived in Ying City 20 minutes ago. He should be on his way to Wang Fuhai's house now. Xinzhi's expression did not change much. His tone was extremely calm. Let him go. It was just a few simple words, but Liang Yu could tell that he had a card up his sleeve. It seemed that everything was already under his control. Strategizing, deciding victory from 1,000 miles away. No wonder he was the big boss that he respected the most. Xinzhi sent Jiyuqi to the entrance of the Ji family's house. After the two hugged and said goodbye, Jiyuqi watched his car drive onto the road. She hummed a little tune and walked into the house with relaxed steps. She thought that Qin Tingfang and her father's divorce was settled and she would never have to see Qin Tingfang again. She did not expect that the person sitting upright on the sofa was the person she did not want to see. Oh, Yuqi is back. Was it fun going out with your boyfriend? Was that woman with a kind smile really the Qin Tingfang who had fought with her father for the family property until her face turned red? What on earth had happened during the week she had been traveling? Jiyuqi's mind was full of questions, but she still maintained a decent smile on her face. She said lightly, Auntie Qin, I thought I wouldn't be able to see you again this time. Look at you, child. What nonsense are you saying? We are a family. How could I not see you? Annie Lee misses back. Hurry up and bring me a bowl of soup I made. Yuqi, you must be hungry after such a long flight. Have some soup to warm your stomach. Qin Tingfang was very enthusiastic, just like when she first married into the family. One who was unaccountably solicitous was hiding evil intentions. Jiyuqi was secretly vigilant, but the smile on her face did not change. No need, Auntie Qin. I ate on the plane. I'm not hungry at all. I'm just a little tired. Then hurry upstairs and rest. What do you want to eat for lunch? Auntie will ask the kitchen to prepare it for you. Everything is fine. I'm not picky. Auntie, I'll go upstairs first. Jiyuqi took a shower, changed her clothes and lay on the comfortable fabric sofa in the bedroom. While wiping her wet hair with a towel, she dialed Ji Yunhan's number. At this time he should have finished school. Hello sister, you're back? The young man's excited voice was transmitted to her ear through the phone. She smiled and said, Yes, I'm back. Did you miss me? I don't want to. You and Xinzhi ran out to play and left me alone at home. I'm bored to death. You're too disloyal. You're not convinced? If you're not convinced, come and bite me. Jiyuqi bickered with him for a while and started to talk business. What's going on with Qin Tingfang? Why is she still living at home? Ji Yunhan sighed like an old man. Don't mention it. Dad said that he can't get a divorce for the time being. The two scourges, Qin Tingfang and Yi Zisu, have to continue living in our house. What happened? On the third day after you left, Qin Tingfang's cousin Lu Jianfeng suddenly came to visit. He chatted with Dad in the study for the whole afternoon. I don't know what they talked about, but that night, Dad told me that he won't get a divorce for the time being. I asked him why, but he refused to tell me. I'm guessing that Lu Jianfeng must have threatened Dad. Jiyuqi frowned. Ahan's words made sense. Dad's change of heart must have had something to do with Lu Jianfeng. There's one more thing. After Lu Jianfeng came to visit our house, Qin Tingfang and Yi Zisu made up. Also, Yi Zisu stopped going to nightclubs and went back to being the innocent little white flower she used to be. Jiuqi pinched the space between her eyebrows and sighed. It seems that a lot of things have happened while I was away. One last thing, sis. Brother Tang came to look for you. Brother Tang was referring to Tang Feng. Ever since Jiuqi rejected his proposal, the two of them had not contacted each other. She did not expect him to come to her house to look for her. She asked in surprise, why was he looking for me? Brother Tang said that he's going to England for his postgraduate studies. He has already received an offer from Cambridge University. That's great. Congratulations to him. Ji Yunhan was silent for a moment before he said, Sis, you should give Brother Tang a call and congratulate him in person. When he came to look for you that day you weren't around. He looked very disappointed. The name Tang Feng ran through her mind over and over again. From time to time, memories of her childhood flashed through her mind. Jiuqi sighed and finally picked up her phone to call him. The phone rang twice and she heard his deep voice. Yuchi? Jiuqi pretended to laugh lightly. Brother Tang Feng, I heard from Ahan that you've received an offer from Cambridge University. Congratulations. The person on the other end of the phone was silent for a long time before he slowly said, Thank you. Jiuqi scratched the back of the sofa with her fingers and smiled sweetly. Brother Tang Feng, how are Grandpa and Grandma Tang? I brought them gifts from abroad. I'll bring them to them tomorrow. Is it convenient? Yes, it's convenient for you to come over whenever you want. After learning that he had been accepted, Tang Feng had a lot to say to Yuqi. When he mustered up the courage to go to her house, Ahan told him that she was traveling abroad with a friend. Tang Feng's enthusiasm was immediately extinguished. He thought that she was in love. The so-called friend must be her boyfriend. He asked Ahan for confirmation and Ahan admitted it. Although he already knew that he couldn't win back Yuchi's feelings and tried his best to forget her, he still couldn't help but feel pain in his heart when he learned that she was dating Shinja. Jiuqi pretended not to hear the pain in his voice. Brother Tang Feng, I'll see you tomorrow. Okay. Dead silence returned to his ears. Tang Feng looked at the phone in his hand and bitterly pursed his lips. That night, the whole family had dinner together. Ji Bowen hadn't seen his daughter for a few days and missed her very much. He kept putting food in her bowl and piling it up like a small hill. Ji Yunhan said childishly, Dad, you're biased. You value girls more than boys. Ji Bowen deliberately scolded with a straight face, girls should be pampered and boys should be rough. Otherwise, how can you grow up to be an indomitable man? Dad, you're looking for excuses for your bias. Ji Yunhan said with dissatisfaction, but his face was full of smiles. On the table that had long been lifeless, the laughter of the past was finally restored. Jiuqi secretly observed for a long time and realized that although Qin Tingfang and Yi Zisu seemed to have reconciled on the surface, they were actually divided at heart. Well, there was Xiao Yihan between the two of them, so how could there not be a barrier? As the saying goes, a broken mirror is hard to mend. They were just maintaining harmony on the surface. After dinner, Jiuqi gave the gifts she bought from Hawaii to everyone one by one. Yi Zisu looked like a close sister, and thanked her affectionately. Qin Tingfang was also very enthusiastic. She couldn't wait to hug Jiuqi and shout, Good daughter. The two siblings, Jiuqi and Ji Yunhan, were thunderstruck by the mother and daughter's exaggerated performance. They tried their best not to get goosebumps all over their bodies. The whole family gathered together and chatted for a while before returning to their rooms to rest. Ji Bowen went to the study. Jiuqi followed in and muttered unhappily, Dad, didn't you want to divorce Auntie Qin? Why aren't you divorcing her? Ji Bowen sighed. Chi-Chi, I know that you and Ahan don't like her, but Dad is also very helpless. There are some things that I can't control. Chi-Chi, I've already talked to her. She won't cause trouble for you and Ahan in the future. Just hold on for a few more years, okay? Dad, tell me the truth. Did Lu Jianfeng threaten you? Ahan told you, right? Ji Bowen pinched his eyebrows. You're still young. Don't worry about these things for the time being. Don't think too much about it. Dad will take care of it. Dad, I'm not young anymore. Just tell me. Jiuqi shook his arm coquettishly. Dad, after I graduate, I'll enter the G group. If you keep hiding everything from me now and shield me from the wind and rain, how can I grow and manage the company in the future? You should let me know about these things earlier. All right. I really don't know what to do with you. Ji Bowen was moved by her words. He deliberated for a while and said, Lu Jianfeng is about to be transferred to Ing City and become the leader of Ing City. You know that although our Ji family's business is very big, we rarely come into contact with the ways of the government. If he casually sets a trap for us, we'll fall into it. A few days ago he came to visit me. During our conversation he mentioned a few investments made by the G Group. He even said that there might be financial problems. Tell me if this isn't a clear threat, then what is? As he spoke, his chest rose and fell rapidly. His expression was very ugly. Jiuqi patted his chest tenderly and said softly, "Dad, don't be agitated. Take a deep breath." Ji Bowen shook his head. "I'm fine. Lu Jianfeng is in the limelight now. I have to give him some face. It's just that you and Ahan will have to suffer." "Dad, don't worry. Even if Qin Tingfang stays in our house, Ahan and I won't let her bully us." Jiuqi gritted her teeth. Her beautiful face was filled with determination. "Dad, Lu Jianfeng won't be able to be arrogant for long. Once he falls, Qin Tingfang will have no backing. Let's see how long they can be arrogant for." She thought to herself, "Lu Jianfeng, I originally wanted to stay out of your way. I didn't expect you to interfere with the Ji family's affairs. Don't blame me for being heartless." After Xinyu rushed back from Hawaii, he immediately went to Wang Fuhai's house. He went straight to the point and said that he wanted to buy the shares in his hands. He didn't expect Wang Fuhai to say that the shares had been sold to Zhongxin Technology. He suppressed his anger and said sternly, "How can you sell the shares in private? You're harming the company's interests." Wang Fuhai already had the money from selling the shares in his hands. He didn't put Xinyu in his eyes. He sneered, "Second young master Xin, it's because I have someone like you as the CEO that I have to plan for my own future. Do you want me to wait for you to squander the Xin family group before I think for myself? Humph, before you accuse others, please consider your own weight. Do you really think you're the owner of the Xin family group?" Xinyu was furious. In the past, when the board of directors convened, there were indeed many directors who didn't give him face and found fault with him. However, no one dared to be so explicit. He couldn't stand being insulted like this. He stood up and glared at Wang Fuhai. "Wang Fuhai, don't be complacent. I'll make you pay for today's actions." Wang Fuhai also stood up. Although he didn't have the advantage in height, his aura didn't lose to the young man. He said coldly and arrogantly, "What other abilities do you have? Use them all. Are you going to send someone to break my car, create a car accident, or kidnap my child?" At that time, in order to stop Wang Fuhai from selling the shares, Xinyu specifically told his assistant to delay the time no matter what means he used. The assistant was also from the underground organization. The method he came up with was also quite bad. First, he asked someone to break Wang Fuhai's car so that he couldn't go out. Then he asked someone to create a small car accident to hurt Wang Fuhai so that he couldn't negotiate with the people of Zhongxin Technology on schedule. But Xinyu's assistant never thought that Xinjia had already sent people to secretly protect Wang Fuhai and resolved all the crises. At the same time, he also let Wang Fuhai see Xinyu's despicable character. That's why Wang Fuhai hated Xinyu so much and said those mocking words. Xinyu was blocked by Wang Fuhai's words. His cold aura instantly dissipated by half. He stared at Wang Fuhai expressionlessly and coldly said, "I'll let you know my methods." Wang Fuhai sneered, "If you have any methods, just use them. However, Xinyu, I want to remind you, don't go too far. As the saying goes, leave a line for everything so that we can meet in the future. Maybe you, the second young master Xin, will beg me, so why be so aggressive?" Xinyu coldly snorted, "Good, very good. Let's see who will beg who in the future." Wang Fuhai relied on foreign trade to make a fortune. He has a lot of connections overseas. But compared to Xinyu, he can only be regarded as a small child. Xinyu has a friendship with the international hacker Great White Shark, and Great White Shark has a lot of underground organizations. So, indirectly, Xinyu also has some connections with the underground organizations. If he wanted to quietly destroy Wang Fuhai's overseas business, it would not be difficult. However, he never expected that Wang Fuhai would change into the vice chairman of Zhongxin Technology and become his real opponent in name. Zhongxin Technology Chairman and President Office. Wang Fuhai symbolically knocked on the door and walked into the office. Looking at the young man sitting on the chair, he smiled and said, "Mr. Shen, I'm here to report." "Uncle Wang, aren't you making fun of me? Just call me by my name in the future." Shen just stood up to greet him. On his usually cold and handsome face, a faint smile appeared. His tone was sincere. "Uncle Wang, thank you for supporting me. Why are you so polite? I was also entrusted by your grandfather." Wang Fuhai's chubby body leaned on the back of the chair. His face showed a kind smile. "I'm really very happy to see you grow up." Awesome novel Songshu 566. Chapter 908. Wang Fuhai is actually the son of Shenji's grandfather, Qin Tianyou's good friend. He grew up with Shenji's mother, Qin Yuelan. After Qin Yuelan passed away, Qin Tianyou asked him to take care of Shenji. That's why Wang Fuhai bought a large amount of Shen Group's shares and eventually became one of the most important directors. Before Shenji returned to China, he had quietly established Zhongxin Technology with Wang Fuhai's help. The development of Zhongxin Technology is also due to his contribution. After Shenji returned to China, he encountered a lot of pressure when he first entered the Shen Group. It was also Wang Fuhai who secretly helped him. But now Shenji has the strength to compete with the Shen Group. Therefore, Wang Fuhai retired and transferred 10% of his shares to Zhongxin Technology and became the vice chairman of Zhongxin Technology. Shenji was grateful for what he had done and sincerely said, "Uncle Wang, if it wasn't for your support, I wouldn't have grown so quickly. In the future, as long as I, Shenji, am around, Zhongxin Technology will definitely not treat you unfairly." The child in front of him grew up from an autistic child to today's all-powerful and independent company's person in charge. Wang Fuhai could understand the sadness in his heart. He couldn't help but feel a lump in his throat and scolded with a smile, "Brat, why are you talking about this? If your mother saw you like this, she would be so happy that she would cry. Uncle Wang, you seem to be crying." Shenji made a rare joke. "How could I? My eyes are filled with sand." Okay, let's not talk about this anymore. Tell me, what's your next plan?" While the atmosphere here was warm, the Shen family study room was shrouded in a gloomy atmosphere. Shen Jianhao just returned from a business trip abroad and heard that Wang Fuhai sold his shares to Zhongxin Technology and became the vice chairman of Zhongxin Technology. This made his mood extremely bad. With a pale face he said, "Zhongxin Technology, do you know anything about this company?" Shen Yu's face was also not good. He said in a deep voice, "Zhongxin Technology is a high-tech company established 4 years ago. It mainly engages in software development, game development, and other businesses. 2 years ago, it began to expand into real estate, tourism, and other industries. It's now a strong competitor of the Shen Group." Who's in charge of the company? "The chairman and CEO of Zhongxin Technology. It said that he's a foreigner and has never shown his face." "It said?" Shen Jianhao's temper was very bad. He couldn't help but vent his anger. "Don't you have a lot of connections? Why can't you find out anything about this?" "Dad, the other party's background is not small. How can we find out everything just like that? I feel that the most important thing right now isn't to find out who is responsible, but to stabilize the hearts of the people. There are a few old men on the board who have a good relationship with Wang Fuhai, and we have to prevent them from rebelling. In addition, when the news of high-tech acquiring 10% of the Shen family shares is announced, it will definitely cause a certain amount of panic. We need to prepare for it in advance. At this point, complaining wouldn't solve anything." Shen Jianhao also calmed down and discussed with Chen Yu how to deal with this. 2 days later, the news of Zhongxin Technology Company's intention to acquire the Shen's group was spread. Most people laughed it off. What was Zhongxin Technology Company? A company that had not even been established for 4 years? How could they acquire the largest corporation in Ying City, the Shen's group? Stop joking around. The Shen Corporation did not take this rumor seriously at all. They continued to do what they were supposed to do. The previously low-key president, Shen Yu, gradually became high-profile. He began to accept media interviews and frequently appeared at charity events. He told everyone with practical actions that the Shen Corporation was very stable and would not be affected by the acquisition storm. However, the board of directors did not think so. More than half of the directors requested for a board meeting to have Shen Yu explain the acquisition of shares by Zhongxin Technology Company. The few directors who were close to Wang Fuhai severely criticized Shen Yu for not fulfilling his duties as the president. They felt that he was not a qualified manager. A white-haired director said mercilessly, "I think that if the Shen's group wants to develop, we need to change to someone more capable and more daring than Shen Yu to take charge of the situation." Shen Yu's face was gloomy. "Director Zhang, if you feel that I am not suitable for the position of president, then who do you think is more suitable?" Director Zhang said expressionlessly, "I think Shenji is more suitable. Although his experience in the Shen's group is not as good as yours, from the few things he has done after entering the Shen's group, we can see that he is more daring than you. The president is the executive of a company. He must be far-sighted and have the ability to strategize. We have all seen last year's financial report. Since Shenji returned to the country, the company's operations have become more efficient. Moreover, the company's net profit has increased by 20%. This is the total increase of the company's profits in the 3 years that you have led the company. His words were powerful and resonant, and the large conference room immediately became silent. After nearly 10 seconds of silence, someone finally spoke up for Xinyu. Director Zhang, it seems that you've gone a bit too far. Xinju is only the vice president. Many of the things he did were done with Xinyu's approval. At the end of the day, it's still Xinyu's outstanding vision and tolerance. An excellent leader not only needs to be far-sighted, but also needs to know how to use people. Director Zhang retorted, know how to use people? Before Xinju came back, most of the company's middle and high-level managers were Xinyu's trusted aides. In the end, they were unclear about their duties, evaded responsibility, used their power for personal gain, embezzled the company's public funds, and even colluded with competitors. Is this how he knows how to use people? The person who spoke well of Xinyu was questioned until he was speechless, and another person immediately stepped forward to analyze Xinju's shortcomings. As a result, the board of directors turned into a vegetable market. Everyone was divided into 2 groups. One group was led by Director Zhang, who supported Xinju to seize the position of president. The other group was led by Jianghu, who supported Xinyu to continue to be the president. The 2 groups quarreled for more than an hour without convincing each other. Finally, Jianghu said, I propose that we vote. Everyone agreed. Finally, it was unanimously decided that for 2 months, the board of directors would examine the decision-making and leadership ability of the current president and vice president, and then vote to elect the new president. In other words, starting from this decision, Xinju was no longer under Xinyu's control. He could bypass Xinyu and make management decisions. After the meeting was over, only Xinju and Xinyu were left in the large conference room. Xinyu said with a smile, brother, congratulations. Xinju said indifferently, it won't be too late for you to congratulate me when I'm promoted to president. Xinyu laughed gloomily, hee for today's show you must have spent a lot of effort. In order to make those old things stand on your side, what benefits did you give them? The sentence I should be the one asking you. What on earth did you do to make those people stand on your side? His tone was very calm and his deep eyes were like the dangerous deep sea. Even if he didn't reveal the slightest bit of it, Xinyu could hear the contempt in his words. The veins on Xinyu's forehead jumped. He gritted his teeth and said, I won't let you succeed. This position is mine. Xinju didn't say a word. He expressionlessly brushed past him. It seemed that he disdained to continue the boring conversation between the 2 of them. Xinyu was about to go crazy. His handsome face was distorted with anger. He secretly swore in his heart that he must defeat him and trample him under his feet. That night, Xinyu wanted to find a woman to relax and adjust his mood. He asked his assistant to call a young model. The 2 of them had a candlelight dinner in his apartment. Then they got to the point. The young model skillfully teased him, but he didn't have the slightest reaction. The young model tried her best to serve him, but he still didn't respond. Xinyu flew into a rage out of humiliation and pushed the young model away. Go away, I'm not in the mood tonight. The young model aggrievedly got up from the ground and put on her clothes. She pitifully glanced at him a few times. When she found that he didn't have any intention to stay, she reluctantly left. Xinyu angrily threw the vase to the ground. He firmly refused to accept the fact that he couldn't. He thought that the young model wasn't good enough and didn't arouse his interest. So he didn't give up. He called the hottest and most skilled female companion. The female companion was wearing a sexy halter dress. Her chest squeezed out a deep ravine. She swayed her waist and buttocks. With a seductive look in her eyes, she kept sending electricity to him. Her hands were wandering around the sensitive areas of his body. Damn it, there was still no reaction. Xinyu violently shook off his female companion. Go away, I don't need you. The female companion coquettishly stomped her feet, hugged her clothes and ran away. But in her heart she was thinking, could it be that second young Master Xin couldn't? It seemed that she would have to find another financial backer in the future. After all, who would be willing to serve a waste? The other sisters still didn't know about this. She had to tell them not to dream of marrying into the Xin family. Xinyu's private life was chaotic. Many of his women knew about the existence of other people. Some of them even established friendships. So, the news that second young Master Xin's masculinity was no longer as strong as it had grown wings and quickly spread throughout that circle. Of course, Jiyuchi's credit was also indispensable. Hey, I heard that the CEO of Xin Group can't do it anymore. Didn't they say that his golden gun won't fall 7 times a night? That was in the past. Now he can't do it anymore. I think it's because he played with too many women. Isn't it just, as long as you work hard, an iron pestle can be ground into a needle? Haha. Later, the conversation between these women was overheard by the men. From time to time, the playboy who had dealings with Shen Yu would come in front of him and stare at a certain part of his body with ill intentions. He laughed evilly and said, "Second young Master Shen, I heard that you can't do it anymore? Do you want me to introduce a doctor to you?" A man's dignity was insulted. Shen Yu was so angry that his face turned green. He gritted his teeth and said, "Who told you? Now that everyone has spread the news, the women in the circle don't dare to look for you to play." Shen Yu almost crushed the wine glass. Only 2 people knew about that matter. It must have been those 2 bitches who spread the news. As a result, those 2 pitiful women quickly suffered Shen Yu's revenge. One was kicked out of the modeling circle and couldn't even find a job. The other, after being raped by a hooligan, had her face scratched. Unless she had plastic surgery, no one would be willing to support her in the future. Shen Yu didn't know what happened to his body. He was worried that his medical treatment in the country would be discovered, so he specially made a trip to the United States and went to the most famous expert for a checkup. The expert said that his body was normal. Perhaps it was because of a psychological problem that caused his impotence. Shen Yu suddenly remembered that ever since he kissed Junko and caused an allergic reaction, his body began to become abnormal. It must be at that time that caused a psychological shadow. Damn it, it was all Junko's fault. He must find that bitch and make her live a life worse than death. Beauty novel Hongcha 866. Chapter 909. The experts also said that psychological problems were caused by psychological problems and needed to be treated from a psychological perspective. Simple drug treatment was useless. Shen Yu couldn't stay in America for a long time, so he could only return to China for psychological treatment. He specially signed a confidentiality agreement with the psychiatrist to prevent him from revealing his condition. After a month of treatment, he finally recovered. He credited all of this to the psychiatrist and was completely unaware that Lan Shui had drugged him. Once the effects of the drug wore off, he would naturally regain his masculinity. The Tang family had a glass greenhouse that covered an area of a few hundred square meters. Even though it was winter, the greenhouse was as warm as spring. Today the weather was very good. Soft rays of light shone in the greenhouse and various flowers bloomed quietly under the sun. The air was filled with a strong fragrance. A tree covered with wisteria and a few rattan chairs were placed under the tree. Jiuqi and Tang Feng sat under the wisteria. The warm sunlight shone through the gaps and mottled light sparkled on their bodies. The quiet time pulled open the memories in the depths of their minds. Tang Feng looked at the woman opposite him. She was very beautiful and squinted her eyes slightly as if she was enjoying this beautiful afternoon. The corners of his lips curled up slightly. "Yuchi, do you remember when you were 5 years old, you planted an epiphyllum in this greenhouse?" Jiuchi recalled the past and felt a little disappointed. She laughed softly and said, "I remember. At that time, I was in a daze and stayed by the epiphyllum every night waiting for it to bloom. Yeah, I stayed up until 11 o'clock and refused to sleep. I was so sleepy that I couldn't even open my eyes, but I still held my little face and waited bitterly." Tang Feng's handsome face showed a touch of helplessness, but his tone was full of affection. "You've been very stubborn since you were young, but you listened to me very well. The adults tried all kinds of methods but couldn't coax you to go back to sleep." Jiuchi winked playfully and interrupted him. "As long as you lied to me that if I didn't sleep my nose would grow longer, I would go upstairs with you to sleep with Gigai. So, Brother Tang Feng, you always bullied me when we were young." The woman in front of him was smiling like a flower. Unconsciously, her face overlapped with the cute little girl in his memory. Tang Feng's throat tightened and his eyes became dry. He really wanted to say, "Yuchi, do you know that I've decided to marry you since I was 8 years old? Life is hard to predict, but we walk further and further apart. It was me who threw you into the memories of time." In the end, he lowered his eyes to hide the tears in his eyes and said gently, "Yuchi, if I could start my life over again, I wouldn't bully you anymore." "It's your turn to bully me." The sun shone on his body but there was no warmth. She only felt cold. Her lips quivered as if she wanted to say something, but in the end she did not say anything. She pretended to smile and said, "Brother Tang Feng, wait for me." When Tang Feng raised his head, he only saw her pretty back running into the depths of the greenhouse. He took a sip of the black coffee in his cup. It was very bitter, just like his mood at the moment. A bouquet of pure white lilies of the valley appeared in front of him. She had a sweet smile on her beautiful face, and her eyes were curved into beautiful crescents. Brother Tang Feng, this is for you. The meaning of the lilies of the valley is happiness. As long as you receive the lilies of the valley, you will be blessed by the god of luck. The lilies of the valley were as white as jade, fresh and elegant. They only waited for the person who cared the most. Only the person who loved them the most could hear the sound of their knocking in the wind. In order to obtain true love, they waited for their own spring to come in the lonely valley. It's very beautiful, thank you. The corners of Tang Feng's lips curved. His slender fingers took the small bouquet of lilies of the valley. He was waiting for love and a new beginning. Since she wanted him to be like this, he would follow her heart. Who asked him to bully her for so many years? It was time for him to pay her back. The trip to the Tang family was quite pleasant. Although the elders of the Tang family felt that it was a pity that Jiuqi could not be the daughter-in-law of the Tang family, they had all watched her grow up and sincerely wanted her to be happy. Therefore they did not blame her. Instead, they suggested that she should be recognized as their goddaughter and treat the Tang family as her second maternal family. The Tang family and the Ji family had been friends for generations. Ji Bowen also agreed with the Tang family's suggestion. Therefore the two families hit it off. On New Year's Day, the Tang family held a banquet and publicly announced that they would recognize Yuqi as their goddaughter. Jiuqi stood between Father Tang and Mother Tang and politely greeted the guests. Tang Feng held a wine glass and followed beside them. Occasionally he would glance at Yuqi's sweet smile. However, his heart was filled with mixed feelings. Sister. Yuqi had really become his sister. Those thoughts should be completely cut off. Just like Ling Lan, he would wait for his happiness. Sister Qiqi, you look so beautiful tonight. Yi Zissou held a glass of red wine in her hand and walked slowly to Jiuqi. Jiuqi smiled. Thank you. Yi Zissou looked at her expectantly. Sister Qiqi, can I talk to you alone? Sure. Wait for me at the balcony. Jiuqi turned around and said something to Father and Mother Tang. Then she walked through the crowd and found Yi Zissou waiting by the balcony. Yi Zissou leaned against the railing and looked at the bright stars in the night sky. She smiled. Sister Qiqi, look at those stars. They're so beautiful. I still remember when Mom and I first came to the Ji family and saw you for the first time. You were as dazzling as the stars. I was very envious of you. Was she reminiscing about the past? The corners of Jiuqi's lips curled up as she said gently, at that time, you were like a pure white rose. I also liked you very much. Yi Zissou's eyes gradually turned red and her voice was dry. I'm sorry, Sister Qiqi. I know I've done a lot of things to let you down. I really want to repent. Can you give me a chance? Okay. Yi Zissou hadn't expected her to agree so easily. She stared at her with wide eyes and saw her smile as bright as the sun. Zissou, do you believe that no matter what you do to hurt me, I'll treat you as my sister? Yi Zissou wanted to shake her head, but she felt that it was inappropriate and nodded stiffly. Jiuqi's smile deepened, and there was a strange look in her eyes. Since you believe me, why can't I believe you? Let's be a pair of loving sisters. She stretched out her right hand and firmly held it in front of Yi Zissou under the bright lights. Yi Zissou stared at that fair and beautiful hand as if she was looking at a poisonous snake. Her fingers trembled and she finally reached out and slowly held it. In the misty night, the two of them looked at each other and smiled. However, perhaps only they knew what each of them was thinking. Jiuqi leaned against the railing, gazing into the distance at the dazzling lights in the hall. Suddenly, she heard a familiar magnetic voice. Since you hate her, why do you still want to make peace with her? Shinja walked over under the starlight. His face was handsome and his eyes were sparkling. She was the only one who was lucky enough to see the warmth in his eyes. Knowing that he had heard her conversation with Yi Zissou, she smiled and leaned towards him out of habit. She held his hand tightly and said slowly, Yi Zissou wants to make peace with me, so she must be up to something. Then I'll go along with her wishes and see what she wants to do. His slender fingers stroked her delicate earlobes. You're always right. She smiled. That's because you indulge me. You. His tone was helpless and his eyes were full of affection. Under the dim light, the two figures overlapped each other. What an enviable couple. Tang Feng stood on the high steps and slowly drank the bitter liquid in the glass. Ever since that night, Yi Zissou had returned to her former image of a well-behaved little sister. She called out, Sister Qiqi, all day long. She wanted to go to school with her and she wanted to sit with her in class. Even when Jiyuchi went out to play with her classmates, she wanted to interfere. Lin Yushi couldn't stand it and complained to Jiyuchi in private, "What's wrong with that Yizisu? Why is she pestering you every day?" Jiyuchi smiled and said, "She's so enthusiastic, so there must be something wrong. I'm just waiting for her to show her tail. It's okay, just pretend that she doesn't exist. We'll play by ourselves." After a few times, Yizisu found that Jiyuchi's attitude towards her had improved a lot. She thought that she had broken through her defenses bit by bit. Slowly, she began to carry out the second step of her plan, to take the initiative to ask her out to play. The first time, Sister Chichi, a famous French painter, is holding an art exhibition at the art gallery this weekend. I know you like painting very much. Let's go to the art exhibition together, okay? I really want to go, but I've already made an appointment with Yushi to go hiking this weekend. I'm sorry, Zisu. It's okay. I'll go to the art exhibition alone. The second time, Sister Chichi, my friend gave me 2 tickets to the play. Let's go watch the play together, okay? When? Saturday night. Are you free? I'm sorry. I've made an appointment with my friend for dinner on Saturday night. Let's go together next time if there's a chance. After Yizisu's invitation had failed 3 times, Jiyuchi decided to give her a taste of her own medicine. On the 4th invitation she agreed, saying that she happened to be free. Hence, on an afternoon when there were no classes, they agreed to go to a clothing store to buy clothes. This was the busiest pedestrian street in Ing City. It was filled with internationally renowned brands. In one of the high-end clothing stores, Jiyuchi was pretending to choose clothes. Yizisu took a dress to the fitting room to try it on. As soon as she entered the fitting room, she immediately took out her phone and said in a low voice, "Hello, I've already lured Jiyuchi out as you requested. When are you going to return my photos?" Outside the clothing store, 2 men in suits and leather shoes looked through the glass window at Jiyuchi, who was choosing clothes in the store. One of the men was holding a phone in one hand. With a gentle smile on his handsome face, he said in a gentle voice, "I'm very busy now. I'll call you back later." After saying this, he quickly hung up the phone without waiting for a reply. "Jiang Tianhao, you're really something. The most beautiful curly-haired woman in the clothing store, is she really your ex-girlfriend?" Jiang Tianhao put his phone in his trouser pocket and laughed. "Of course I can lie to anyone but you, young Master Jin." Jiang Tianhao's company had racked their brains in order to get the bid for the government project. By chance, Jiang Tianhao had met this young Master Jin. His full name was Jin Mingyao, and he was the son of the current second-in-command of Ing City. His father happened to be in charge of this bid. Therefore, Jiang Tianhao planned to win over Jin Mingyao at all costs. As long as he could bribe Jin Mingyao's father through Jin Mingyao, then this bid would belong to his company. At that time, Jiang Tianhao would be the company's hero. Would he still have to worry that the company wouldn't give him a promotion? Jin Mingyao had a handsome appearance, and the suit he was wearing was also expensive. However, this guy was a real beast in human clothing. He liked to play with women the most, and the ones he played with were not prostitutes, but women from good families or married women. In his words, he would feel the pleasure of conquering those decent and virtuous married women lying under his body. He stared at Jiyuchi's figure with a burning gaze and smiled evilly. "That ex-girlfriend of yours, is she really still a virgin?" "Of course. Don't look at her appearance. She's the hot and sexy type. In fact, her personality is very conservative. We dated for half a year, but we only held hands. She didn't even let me kiss her." Jiang Tianhao knew what to say to please Jin Mingyao. Sure enough, Jin Mingyao's smile became even brighter. This kind of pure little woman, conquering her will be even more enjoyable. He touched his chin and saw Yizisu walking out of the changing room. Her pure face made his eyes light up. He smiled and said, "Who's that woman? She's quite beautiful." Ad Hongcha 866. Chapter 9-10. Jin Mingyao didn't have much ability and was full of cunning thoughts. His whole heart was on how to chase women, and he didn't pay attention to the gossip news. Therefore, he didn't know that Jiang Tianhao and Yizisu were once husband and wife. Jiang Tianhao smiled and said, "That woman is my ex-girlfriend's sister. We are not related by blood." "Sisters? Hehe, it's not bad to have 2 together." Jin Mingyao laughed evilly. Jiang Tianhao also had the same intention and complimented him with a few words. It was nothing more than euphemistically praising him for being strong and healthy and having a golden gun that won't fall. Jin Mingyao smiled from ear to ear. As a man, he liked to be praised for his ability to be better than others in that aspect. Jin Mingyao smiled and patted him on the shoulder. Tianhao, don't worry. As long as I get those two beauties, I will definitely help you with the project. Jiang Tianhao's eyes lit up and smiled. Thank you, young Master Jin. Well said, well said. The two men were talking about a dirty deal on the street outside the clothing store. Inside the clothing store, Jiuqi had long noticed that there was a pair of eyes watching her. She pretended not to notice and continued to choose clothes. She picked up a piece of clothing and pretended to measure it on her body. Her eyes quickly glanced outside the store. Suddenly, as if she was struck by lightning, her body stiffened for a moment. Jiang Tianhao, Jin Mingyao, it was actually those two bastards. That incident should have happened more than a year later, but it actually happened ahead of time. She quickly lowered her eyes and turned around. With her back to the glass display window, her fingers tightly grasped the clothes. All the blood in her body rushed to the top of her head. Her mind was filled with the unbearable memories of her previous life. That feeling of despair, the sight of blood, the wind madly forced her. She almost couldn't bear it anymore. She really wanted to rush out and bite those two scumbags to death. Sister Chichi, what's wrong with you? You don't look good. Are you feeling unwell? Yi Zissou came out of the changing room and saw Jiuqi's pale face. Her eyes were tightly shut and she looked like she was in pain. Her words were like a basin of cold water, drenching Jiuqi from head to toe. She slowly woke up, opened her eyes and said slowly, "My head hurts a little. Maybe I caught a cold just now." "Then let's hurry home, or should I send you to the hospital?" "No need, I'll just go home and sleep." "But don't you still need to buy clothes?" "It's okay. Your health is more important. Sister Chichi, wait for me here. I'll go get the car." "Well, thank you." Jiuqi took out the car key from his handbag and handed it to her. On the way home, Jiuqi's eyes were slightly closed as she leaned back in her seat, her expression tired. Yi Zissou asked her a few more times with concern, but when she saw that Jiuqi didn't want to talk, she obediently shut her mouth. After returning to the room, Jiuqi's sickly look disappeared and her deep black eyes were filled with sternness. Whenever she thought of the faces of Jin Mingyao and Jiang Tianhao, those two bastards, she was filled with hatred. This time, if they came to provoke her again, she wouldn't let those two scumbags off. At the same time, in Yi Zissou's room, she held the phone in her hand and said impatiently, "Jiang Tianhao, what do you want? I've already promised you that I'll lead Jiuqi to the place you said. Why haven't you returned my photos to me?" At this moment she hated Jiang Tianhao to the core. That bastard actually followed her and secretly took all the photos of her with those men in the nightclub. He even threatened her. Jiang Tianhao's deep and cold laughter came from the phone. "Beg me. If you beg me, I'll return it to you." Yi Zissou was so angry that she was about to vomit blood. She gritted her teeth and stabbed Jiang Tianhao in her heart. "Haha, why aren't you talking? Beg me, and I'll return it to you." Yi Zissou squeezed out a few words from between her teeth. "I beg you, I'll return it to you." He said lazily, "Sorry, your voice is too soft. I can't hear you." Her eyes were filled with hatred. She raised her voice and said word by word, "I beg you, return it to me." "Very well, I heard you clearly, but I've changed my mind." Yi Zissou was furious. "Jiang Tianhao, you're too shameless." He said coldly, "I'm shameless, but it's better than you being a slut. You're willing to be a slut and be ridden by those men. You're really lewd." Yi Zissou screamed. She was about to go crazy from anger. She gritted her teeth and said fiercely, "All right, since you're treating me like this, I don't care anymore. I don't want those photos anymore. Yi Zissou, swear that I'll make you regret being human." Jiang Tianhao laughed softly. "Why are you angry? I was just joking. Seriously, as long as you bring Jiuqi out one more time, I'll return the photos to you. I swear on my integrity." "What integrity do you have?" Yi Zissou sneered. "I want you to swear on your mother's life." "All right, I swear on my mother's life." "Are you satisfied now? I'll let you know the specific time. Remember, no matter what method you use, you must bring Jiuqi out. Otherwise, I'll let everyone in the city know that you're a lewd and lowly woman." "All right." Yi Zissou's poisonous eyes stared fiercely at a certain place in the room, as if she was staring at the person on the other side of the phone. When only the beeping sound was left in her ears, she immediately threw the phone against the wall. Since that day when they went shopping together, the relationship between Yi Zissou and Jiuqi had made great progress. Jiuchi would sometimes take the initiative to invite Izisu to play with her friends. Izisu was naturally happy to see this result. Sister Chichi, my high school classmate, invited me to his birthday party this Saturday night. Can you come with me? Jiuchi awkwardly said, That's your high school friend. You all know each other. If I go with you, won't it be too awkward? Izisu quickly said, It doesn't matter. My classmate said that he was worried that it would be awkward if we didn't see each other for too long, so he asked everyone to bring a friend or family member. The more the merrier. If that's the case, then I'll think about it. If I have time, I'll go with you. Seeing her lack of interest, Izisu quickly said, Sister Chichi, I have a high school classmate who can perform magic. He will also attend the birthday party. Jiuchi's eyes lit up. Magic? Yes, he can casually conjure a lot of flowers and turn them into white pigeons. He's super powerful. I heard that he's very popular with girls in his university. Jiuchi broke into a smile. Since you've invited me, I've decided to accompany you to the birthday ball. Izisu slowly breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he knew that Jiuchi liked to watch magic shows. He finally convinced her to attend the party with him. This was the most luxurious and lively KTV in Ing City. In a huge private room, there were men and women dressed to the nines. Some of them were dancing, some were singing, and some were playing cards or games. A beautiful girl with a crystal crown on her head was surrounded by the crowd. She sat on the sofa like a beautiful princess. She was tonight's main character, Yao Jingjing. Seeing two women walk in from outside, Yao Jingjing stood up happily. Zisu, I've been waiting for you for a long time. You're finally here. Yi Zisu smiled apologetically. Jingjing, I'm sorry we're late. Let me introduce you. This is my sister Yuchi. Sister Chichi, this is my high school classmate Yao Jingjing. She's tonight's princess. Jiuchi revealed a faint smile and held Yao Jingjing's hand. Miss Yao, happy birthday. Thank you, Sister Yuchi. You don't have to be so polite. Just call me Jingjing. Yao Jingjing's personality was very lively. She was the kind of girl who could get along well no matter the occasion. She was also very popular. It was no wonder. She was one of Jin Mingyao's longest girlfriends. How could she not have some special abilities? Yao Jingjing exchanged a few more pleasantries with Yi Zisu. Jiuchi stood at the side, maintaining a decent smile. However, she was sneering in her heart. These two acted as if they were very familiar with each other. In fact, this was the first time they had met. They could really act. The two of them finally ended their boring conversation. Yi Zisu turned around and held Jiuchi's arm. She smiled and said, Sister Chichi, let's go over there and sit for a while. The boy who can perform magic will be here soon. Jiuchi nodded. Yi Zisu pulled Jiuchi to sit near the door. She deliberately chose this place. As for the reason, it would be revealed soon. The heavy wooden door was pushed open. A handsome young man dressed in a high-class suit appeared in front of everyone. When everyone's eyes were on him, he smiled and suddenly bent down in Jiuchi's direction. He stretched out his right hand like a gentleman and said in a magnetic voice with a gentle smile, Beautiful miss, I'm very happy to meet you. Jiuchi was stunned on the spot. Yi Zisu quickly poked her arm. She came back to her senses and smiled. I'm also very happy to meet you. As he spoke, he stretched out his right hand to shake the man's hand. The moment their fingers touched, his fingers suddenly moved slightly and a delicate red rose appeared in his hand. He smiled and handed the red rose to Jiuchi's hand. He praised, Only this delicate red rose can match your beauty. Thank you. Jiuchi held the rose tightly and lowered her eyes slightly to hide the bone-chilling hatred in her eyes. Whether it was in her previous life or this life, Jin Mingyao's method of picking up girls was the same. Even his lines were exactly the same. Izisu thought that she was shy, so she moved closer to her ear and whispered, This is the classmate I told you about, the one who can perform magic. Isn't she interesting? Jiuchi nodded gently. Yes. Yao, why are you so late? Everyone is waiting for you. Yao Jingjing was like a butterfly that flew quickly to Jin Mingyao's side. As she spoke, her tone was intimate, but her actions were very polite. She kept a step away from Jin Mingyao as if she were an ordinary friend. Beauty novel Songshu 566, that you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.